I just want to thank you all for taking your time. I know this is a crazy time for everybody. People are being pulled in a thousand different directions, and everybody's being asked to do in every organization. And I just feel very, I'm humbled that you all decided to take some time to spend with us today here on the Quick. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass this off to Jermaine and let this thing develop how it is. We're going to let this go as long as it needs to go. If I have to put it in 2 or 3 sections, I'll put it in 2 or 3 sections. But I don't want you guys to feel like you can't talk or didn't get a chance to be heard. So everything's on the table. There's no rules. So y'all just go ahead and do whatever you want.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Can you not go away? And if
No.
you have questions and things, I want you to chime in, because I mean, the whole thing about this is that we already, as African Americans and people of color, we already know and talk all the time about some of these issues, and we keep hush hush. But what will make the difference is when they see a person that looks like you also involved in asking questions as well.
Great.
And that will make our points even more stronger, because we've been saying these things for years. Unfortunately, it's just now because of COVID-19, because of George Floyd, and so many things that's happening at once, is making America finally listen up. It's making the arts finally listen up, because they have nothing else to do. They're like, we're at home. But it really makes a difference to see a white person actually in the rooms with us, trying to make the difference, not just kind of going away and not asking any questions or being any kind of involvement.
My entire,
I agree.
Yeah, my entire point was to give this platform whatever it needed. So I'm happy to chime in, or if you want to toss a question to me, I am an open book. I don't know if most people know my story, but like I came from the right wing. I was a right wing conservative Republican, really right winger, and I came from that world where it's a long journey. So I know a lot of people who have been like liberal their whole life. They don't really understand. For me, like, it's a different perspective. So I'm happy to provide that if it's helpful. Absolutely.
It is. It will be extremely helpful to have, especially someone who is right wing. And because, I mean, let me be honest, I'm a Democrat, but I am a closeted Republican, because I have a lot of things that I agree with when it comes to Republicans. However, I'm a Democrat because I'm pro-Black with a lot of other things that I agree with. So I stay more on the Democrat realm, but I'm very conservative with some of my other thoughts and things. But it really makes a difference when someone doesn't look like me says the things or asks the questions, so that we can help with, the misconstrued information.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. Thank you so much for that invitation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us all on.
Pleasure. Yeah.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Jermaine. Well, take it away, brother. We're just here to I'm here to do what I can here. So.
Essentially, right. That's essentially what this is about. I thought these were going to be some of the best voices in the entire world. I know there are billions and billions and billions of us, but when I thought about a curated panel of people, these were some of the first names. These 9 were the first that came, or these 10 were the first that came to my mind. And we have Nia Drummond, we have Raiquan Thomas, Adam Richardson, Dr. Tiffany Jackson, Maurio Hines, Aundi Moore, Cailin Manson, Allison Porter, Joy Jan Jones, and Rebecca Hargrove. And it's about to go down. And we have me. I don't need an introduction. So what I want to happen here is I'm going to ask everyone the same question. And in conjunction with everyone also introducing themselves at some point and their story. And the general question for this episode of The Quick, for all the viewers out there, for the viewers that may not get to this video, but probably need to watch it, the question is, how are we feeling? Simple as that. And whenever you want to speak, because Black people, we usually do things respectfully. I don't know where that got lost in translation, that we're animals and that we're not able to abide by the laws, but you know, this is our home too. And we've always had, I think, a fair amount of discord without being disrespectful. And I don't know where it got lost along the way, but we're here to prove that stereotype very incorrectly. So whoever wants to go, just do your thing.
That's a layered question, man. Layers.
Okay, I'll start.
Oh, go ahead, Doc. Go ahead, Doc.
I'll start. So, how am I feeling? I'm feeling like I've always felt.
Well,
Okay. I just think some people are just waking up to it, I guess. But I'm feeling like I'm always feeling. So my name is Dr. Tiffany Jackson. I live in New Haven, Connecticut. I was raised in New Haven, Connecticut. And I have to say, when it comes to values and morals and ethics and things like that, I think what happens is when we get our politics involved with what's right or wrong is where I have my problem. Because no matter what your political affiliations are, I mean, there is a such thing as like, yo, that's not nice, or that's not kind. I don't think that should be a political thing at all. And to be quite frank, a lot of times I think people don't understand. Black people can be very conservative, especially when it comes to their beliefs in God and church, especially for people within the LGBTQ community and Black communities. Black folks can be very conservative when it comes to things like that. So I just want to say, most Black people are not as liberal as people would think when it comes to a lot of issues. That's the problem. We misconstrue morals and values with our political convictions and things like that. And it's unfortunate that that has happened, that the world has become so tribal. You have to pick or choose a side. And nobody is all of one thing. Nobody is all of one thing. So I just wanted to say that. I've always been a loner. I've always been a person who wants you to stay 6 feet away from me. For real, not for many reasons, because sometimes as singers, we all travel. And I've been to Europe, I've been to Italy, I've been to places where people will just touch you and come into your personal space and want to touch your hair and figure things out about you. And I've always been like, can you just back up? So it wasn't hard for me to start to practice social distancing. I was like, oh, cool. Now I don't have to ask people to back up off of me, right? So that part of it has been pretty much the same for me. I have always been a person who has existed in her own space and doing things alone a lot. I go to the movies alone, I walk alone, I work out alone. I do a lot of things alone. I'm always in this sort of space of solitude because that's where I find my creativity the best. That's where I find my connection to why and to purpose. So that is not different for me. I think what's different is I'm getting a lot of white people writing me notes and letters and inboxing me. Oh, Lord Jesus. I'm like, I don't know what to feel about that. Because, and I know you guys have all experienced this, and I don't know if Michael knows this, but a lot of white people have been reaching out to us, lots, and friends and allies, people who have always been my friends, inboxing and writing me and asking in so many words, what can I do to help? And I'm so sorry that I have been ignoring your pain. Because as a Black person, we walk through the world in survivor mode all the time to the extent where it's so natural for us. And I think white people don't understand that. So now they're starting to understand it. And it's been really hard. And I've been emotional about that. because I admire people for asking questions. I admire people for reaching out. But when you're saying to me, what can I do to help you? I'm like, well, it's not that hard. It's not that difficult. So why do I have to tell a group of people how to help me or how to see me, right? So I have gone through the world not needing that. I've walked through the world not needing that kind of attention or gratification or anything from white people, even though most of my most supportive allies are white people. But just because you have allies who are white and who give money and who buy your gowns and who support you, it doesn't always mean that it transitions to I see you. Right? So I just want to put that out there. I don't want to talk too much, but I have had to deal with that. And also a lot of opportunities. I mean, I've had white people inboxing me, Tiffany, we want to bring your show, because I wrote a one-woman show. We want to stream your show. We want to bring your show. Can you do a cyber performance at our school? Would you like to do this? And so now I'm overwhelmed with like, oh my God, what is all this? I want you. What is all this? What are all these opportunities? Where are they coming from all of a sudden? Because I'm used to being able to create and make and do on my own. So one thing I did not have a problem with in quarantine is having other streams of income. I'm an opera singer, but I also am a writer. I also bend genres. I also teach voice. I'm also a professor of voice, and I do all these different things. I have felt my heart is going out to my friends who sing opera who didn't have other means. My heart is going out to them, but I did not have that problem walking into quarantine. So I just want to share that with you guys to jump this out. I said a lot.
I think I wanted to jump in. Oh, sorry, Mario. Go for it. Go for it.
Hi, everybody. Hi, y'all.
Wait a minute, guys. Mario, I really want you to go, but can we use the raise hand feature just so we can like get an order?
Yes, that works.
Okay, but go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, brother.
No problem, sis. Hi, y'all. I'm Maurio Hines. I am an opera singer. I also dabble in musical theater, and I'm also a professional dancer. How am I doing? You know, I'm doing well. I'm doing well, but in the beginning with the quarantine, I've just been numb to everything with just COVID-19 and then this whole new revolution. It got to a point where I, first of all, had to figure out who I was as a Black man and as a Black gay man at that. Thinking back on what Dr. Tiffany said, you know, sometimes the Black community can be very hard on our own people. And I came from I came from a place where people who were non-Black put me in a box, and then I was kicked out of those people that were in that box. So for me, I was kind of felt that I was kicked out of my own community because I wasn't what they like to say, Black enough. You know, being from the South where most of the Black men played football, they didn't dance, they didn't do anything artistic. So because I was different, because I did all those things, I was kind of exiled from my community. And therefore I felt like I didn't really identify. I mean, I knew I was Black. I mean, hello, I'm Black, but I never felt like I was a part of that community because I was so different. And during this quarantine, I had to learn how to divorce that mentality and say, at the end of the day, I am a Black man, regardless of whether it's someone else's version of that. And you already know. And even just as a Black gay man, at the end of the day, I am Black. And what's hard about this is that my dad is a runner, my brother is a runner, and he's a father of 3 boys. That could have been any of my family, that could have been any of yours. And so it really starts to hit home at a place where it's like, oh my God, this is really happening, and it can be any one of us. And it just got to the point where we all say that we've been talking about this for about 400 years. We're tired. I'm tired. And, you know, also picking back what Dr. Tiffany said, you know, a lot of white people have reached out to me and asked what they could do. And I'm kind of glad too, because I think even though as Black people, we still need to talk and we still need to have that conversation, sometimes it's nice to let the white people do some of the work, because that's what we've been wanting them to do anyway, for the most part. So it's nice to see people taking action and making statements. I mean, it's cute. Yes, actions speak louder than words, but it's a start. You know, I see a lot of people, a lot of celebrities using their platform just to make a statement. And I see a lot of Black people or just other people in general saying, that's nice, but actions, actions. We got to start somewhere. Just the fact that they are acknowledging is a start. We're not letting you off the hook, but we are glad that you are aware of it and you are using your platform to let others be aware of it. You know, and with quarantine, I'm just glad to be able to take a break from being an artist. I miss me. I miss me. I miss being that kid that loves Star Wars, that loves collecting action figures, that's baking and making martinis and drawing. I miss that person because I've been so busy trying to figure out how to tell a story in a 32-bar cut. And it's just so nice to be Maurio Hines, be the human, be the passionate young Black dancer boy. And it's just, I look forward to when this is all over, to bringing that into my artistry, because I feel like that is what's been lacking in my artistry, because I've been so busy, especially in the Broadway community. I gotta tell you, I get so conscious about my voice in musical theater, not because it's bad. I mean, I think I've done pretty well for myself, but the fact that I'm not this Richter, I'm not this Billy Porter type. So I'm self-conscious because it's like, you're gonna hear me sing, you expect me to sing pop and R&B and Motown, but I sing Mozart. And I've got weird reactions from that. Like, can you not sing like that? I mean, I've literally had people tell me that. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is I'm glad that this time, that this quarantine has allowed me to really tap into myself and to get to know myself again, regardless of whether people in the business or in general think it's the right thing to do as a Black man and as a Black artist. And that's all I have to say for now. Thanks.
Anyway, hi, I'm Cailin. I think Rebecca's still not there, but I'm Cailin Manson. I'm in Springfield, Massachusetts. I come from Philadelphia originally, and I feel, I guess, a little differently. I guess the perspective that I bring is, you know, I mean, I've always felt that my look on things, especially as it pertains to being a member of the larger Black community, has been a little different. You know, I was raised by a mother who decidedly left the Black church, right? I was raised in a very ethnically diverse church in one of the whitest denominations of Christendom, meaning the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. The church that I grew up in was originally a German parish. The seal of the church was in German. We sang Bach cantatas every third Sunday, as well as singing, you know, gospel 2 minutes later. So it was very different. My upbringing was extremely different, and I feel that coming kind of out of that and having a number of people, members of my family in the Black church, kind of gave me a best of both worlds outlook on it. And even, you know, I'm a Black gay man. I have a wonderful husband, and I felt that my journey to kind of accepting myself had more to do with me accepting it for myself than the people that I was around accepting it, and maybe even worrying about the other side of my family that was really deep into it, accepting that piece. And so I was always an odd bird. And I still feel like my track was different. I mean, I really, really agree with what Tiffany said about trying to kind of making your own, and coming up and creating your own way. And I think that one of the things that this whole process, be it COVID-19 shuttering arts organizations down to, you know, just the the umpteenth racial atrocity that's happened in our country in the last, let's put it out there, the last, I mean, there's countless over the 400 years, but the last 5 years have really started to ratchet up the boiling point, and gathering how I feel about it. And I think it's a little more pointed for me because, you know, I am a singer. I started out as a singer. Voice is my primary love. But, you know, I've been a choral and orchestral conductor for, you know, 17 years at this point. And being in New England, I have the experience of being the only Black person in the room and being the music director, the artistic director, and having everyone else, having rooms of 100, 200 white people largely looking at me to show them how to move forward and looking to me to give them cultural guidance on how to get through repertoire that looks more like them than me. And there is that piece of, you know, how do you address them? Now, granted, you know, people have reached out to me, colleagues have reached out to me. The organizations that I lead have been, you know, not silent. They've made their statements, but they've given me the space that I need to formulate moving forward. And, you know, and I've spent time being angry, being hurt, trying to piece out how I wanted to deal with this. I miss making music with people. You know, I spend most of my time teaching and conducting and leading other people, and so I miss that. I have enjoyed the opportunity to get back to me. I've practiced more on my own instrument in the last 3 months than I swear I've had time to in the last 10 years, because you're kind of on that hamster wheel. I think we all know about that hamster wheel of just being in between things. But at the same time, I've started to see this whole thing as an opportunity, not just to have very honest conversations about race and honest conversations about how we are existing in predominantly white spaces, but also just kind of, I've had a great deal of feelings about the fact that our industry, the thing we've dedicated our whole lives to, and the way the art has moved forward in this very American, I'm going to put it out there, white capital. Bell Hooks coined this, I didn't. White supremacist capitalist patriarchy. You know, how are we living this out, and how can we flip the script, you know, so that, you know, sometimes, you know, having one Black executive is not going to be enough. You know, how can, you know, the arts, we've talked about, people have been talking about the arts being accessible and making them more accessible for 40 years, but we're still talking about the same thing, right? But is the art present? You know, do people feel like what we do is as a daily part of their lives? And how do we make that change? How do we say to the person, the school teacher in their school, you know, who's leading their choir in an economically depressed area with some predominantly, you know, people of color, Black kids, Latinx, how do we make them know that they have a part in this thing? And one of the things that I love about the panel that's been gathered is that how do we let them know that they don't have to be at the 1% top of this field to actually make a living doing this? You know, I mean, and there's so many artists and so many executives that I admire their work, but they're in the top 1% of this field. They broke through. But there are countless others of us who have dedicated our entire lives to doing this thing, and we make our living doing what we do. And that's a more real discussion that we can have with the people there. We're like, look, you can have correlated careers. You can, I mean, I'm a full-time professor at a university, but at the same time, hey, look, I do this, I do that. I teach master classes. I teach master classes. I do workshops. I mentor, you know, like things that sometimes I get paid for, sometimes I don't get paid for because I feel it's the right thing to do, you know, and how can we do more of that? So that's kind of where my feelings have led me. And I'm so happy to be amongst so many of you who've been doing a lot of the same stuff.
I'm going to let Joy have this moment.
Hey everyone, hi. Hey, greetings from Texas. I'm on the road. I'm on the move. I'm here with my family this week. I haven't been home in almost 2 years, so it's a really special time. We have lost a family member recently, so it's been a very interesting time, but I'm so grateful to be with them. I'm a full-time independent singer and artist, you know, like so many of you. I don't do just one thing, you know. I'm a singer, I'm a teacher, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a model, you know, all that stuff. And I think that, you know, we all do those things because, we have to. And I think especially as Black artists, we have to specifically. Cailin, just to go back to what you were touching on a little bit, I know more of us that have to have more than one hustle to keep it afloat than I do, say, my white colleagues. So, you know, but we all know why that is, right? But anyways, COVID's been an interesting time for me. I haven't really been able to make much music or to sing much, but I've used it as a time of reflection. And how I'm feeling, in a word, is optimistic, you guys. In a word, it's hopeful, because I think for so long we have been trying to bend, you know, white people's ear, especially board members that have money and that have control over who hire us and where and how we move and what we do. But I've been, sorry, I just lost my thought. Where was I going with that? Right. Sorry. But anyway, no. Where was I going, you guys? Come on.
We got you, sis. We got you.
Help me. I had like a whole thing in my head. Anyway, I'm using this as a time of reflection, and I'm optimistic because we've been trying to bend everyone's ear to listen to us and listen to our side of things and how it's looking. Listen to us, you know, look what's happening in the streets, look what's happening in the schools. And I think we finally have the ear of the public and of the people and of the people who make decisions, more importantly. And I'm feeling optimistic because now is the time where we are using our voices to speak up. And we have the brilliant benefit of being artists because we can speak up in ways that other people can't. That's why we're creative artists. So I think that right now is an incredible time for this to be happening simultaneously, because we do have the creative space to write more about this so that we can replace, you know, some of these operas that we see year after year after year with, you know, compositions by our Black composers, by our Black writers, by our Black singers. You know, so many of us write opera and do so many other things than just sing, you know. And I think now is the time for us to push our creative work even further so that people can understand us even better, because people understand us through our art, through our culture, through our music. So I just want to encourage you guys to stay positive, keep doing what you're doing. I love you all. I'm so happy to be a part of this conversation, and thank you.
Oh, it's good to see you, Joy. Also, condolences to your family. I'm so sorry to hear that you lost someone. I'm sending love your way for you and your family. Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Rebecca Hargrove, or L. Hargrove professionally, but you all know me personally, so just call me Rebecca. How am I feeling? First off, I'm based in New York, but quarantining in Maryland right now. Can you guys all hear me? You guys hear me right? Okay. Yeah, quarantining in Maryland, where I'm from. And so I think at first I was very scared with COVID because I don't know about you guys, but I felt like, wow, like I personally had just gotten to a point where I felt like I had started my career proper. Like I go do the really expensive school thing that everyone says that I have to do. And then I don't get the jobs at the houses they say I'm supposed to get the jobs in. And, you know, then I regroup and figure things out and spent 4 years at a desk in a day job. And I had finally gotten to that point where I could go to my manager and be like, I have so many jobs that they all just run into each other that I'm not gonna be able to come back. And I was so proud of that moment, because it was like, am I constantly just gonna be like hoofing it around New York City, trying to make $1 out of 15 cents just to justify being here for the auditions and the opportunities and all of that stuff? And so it felt like my hard work was finally paying off. And some of you guys know I did the Porgy at the Mets. Before that, I headlined a show at Bard Summerscape, and then intermittently between all of these shows, I was at City Center and then on tour. And I was on the road in Sacramento when they started canceling our shows, and Mario and I were on tour together with the New York Gilbert and Sullivan Players. And so they started canceling our shows around Sacramento area, and then the rest of the tour was done. And I knew personally, I had no work. I had like a few gigs, but I had like no major gigs to come back to in New York. And then of course, those few handful of gigs got canceled. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll accept that. And maybe this 14 to 21 day quarantine that they originally quoted us on, I was like, well, doesn't that sound so crazy? This little 2-week, 3-week quarantine we're gonna do, I'll regroup and figure it out. And so my fiance and I, we came to Maryland, and we've been here for 3 months now. But honestly, all of that aside, it's the break that I really needed, because I was just going so hard in the paint, and, you know, go to a rehearsal and in the middle of a lunch break, try to go do a casting, because I also do TV, film, and commercial work. And, you know, one show would end one night and I start rehearsals for the next show the next day. And by the end of tour, I was burnt out. So honestly, I welcomed the unplanned break and what I've been calling summer vacation a little bit. That's how I'm going to try to treat it, so that I remain optimistic, like Joy, about everything. But in this time, I've actually opened my mouth to sing like 4 or 5 times. And I've just been focusing on myself as an actress, because I also do film work. And I'm investing the time that I didn't do in conservatory in learning how to be an actress on stage and actress on camera. And this is basically like my next degree program, if you want to call it that. But sometimes I'm not motivated to sing. I'm not motivated. I don't care to. I don't want to open my mouth to do it unless someone calls me and is like, hey, I need you to record something. And I'm like, okay, cool. But in this time that I have off, I'm just investing in the things that make me happy. And it's been acting, straight acting. Now, with everything that's been going on with having to watch my brothers and sisters die in the streets, kind of like what Dr. Jackson said, it's like, it feels like it's nothing new. And it angers me so much when I hear my white friends say, I had no idea. Friend, now stop that. Yes, you did. It just didn't affect your everyday life. It didn't, coincide with what was happening in your world. And it maybe to you, it seemed like just a Black issue that was over there, and the Black people can deal with that over there. And I'm going to keep dealing with my stuff over here. And what I'm hoping is happening right now is that people are realizing that the things that are happening in the Black community affect all of us, because we're all American. Anything that goes down on this soil affects us as Americans. And this whole like all lives matter thing makes absolutely no sense to me, because you can say that and then treat another life like they're worthless. So that's what angers me about it. And I'm a little overwhelmed. And what I've started doing, this is why I was late, guys. I've started going live from my Instagram and just sharing some of my stories, because I think people look at me and I present in a very non-threatening, non-Black way. And so in the white spaces that I walk in, white people say things to me, and I don't know if they forget that I'm Black or they assume I'm biracial or they assume I'm not Black, and they assume I'm of some other ambiguous ethnicity, but I'm Black. And white people have said and done some outlandish things around me. And I'm tired of just running back to my Black friends and being like, yo, oh my God, you'll never believe. So I've broken down categories of like things that happen to me on the job. So like this happened to me on a gig, things that happened to me in school. And I just had an incident with one of my neighbors that I literally could not sleep. I don't know how y'all have been sleeping the last few weeks, but some of these nights I just wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I start unpacking something traumatic that happened to me in the past that I kind of just pushed down and was like, just get through that. Just get through that. Press on. Terribly, Mario and I have talked about the terrible nights of sleep. But yeah, I was up at 4:00 in the morning this morning thinking about something that happened to me in high school. And so it's just like, I'm just gonna share. And for the people that want to say, I had no idea, here you go. There's that. Now you have an idea. And it's really opened up a lot of dialogue between a lot of my white friends and colleagues and classmates. You were very on time. You know, it came to me. I was like, you have to do this, because I don't share those types of personal things. Like I share the look at me on this gig, look at me having fun, look at me living a very perceived perfect life, because I pick and choose the things that I put out there for the world to consume. But now it's like, okay, you don't believe Black pain is real, or you believe that Black pain is only for your entertainment. Here you go. It's very real. And it's not just my darker skinned brothers and sisters out here. It's all of us. They're not making it up. I'm not making it up. The next person is not making it. I wish my brain operated this way. I would have so many TV shows, y'all. I wish my imagination was this fire, but it's not. So that's what I've been doing to, in a way, heal, but in a way, have dialogue. And it's almost been overwhelming, the response that I got from my first video that I posted last week. It has over 5,000 views now.
It
and
sure does.
It sure does.
That video
like
hit.
Over 20 shares and 5,000 views. And I mean, people down to my teachers in college are inboxing me and calling me and texting me like, I'm sorry, it's wash day, child. I'm just realizing I got water all over my shirt. Are like inboxing me like, did I ever make you feel uncomfortable? If I did, that's never my intention. And thankfully, my teacher who inboxed me to check on me, no, she was amazing and was my rock, if anything, through school. But there have been a lot of people that are like checking in, like, is it me you're talking about? If you think it's you, it could have been you with anybody then. I might not even be talking about you specifically. You might have done this to somebody else. So I'm optimistic in that way that we are going to finally have the uncomfortable dialogue that needs to be had across communities, because I think for a long time, especially in this group, we as artists have allowed ourselves to be uncomfortable in situations because, well, I don't want to be that angry Black woman, or I don't want to not be hired again, or I don't want to be blacklisted for talking about that artistic director that said that very inappropriate thing. So I'm over that, because we all unbooked right now. And if anybody decides to not hire me because of me speaking my mind, then it was not meant for my purpose on this earth to ever help that person make money. That's how I'm doing.
Becca, Rebecca, if I might just jump in real quick, would you mind just telling the audience your wherever that video is? It's your Instagram, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Could you just let us know your Instagram handle so that they could go and find that video? Because I think it's important.
So on Instagram, and if we all don't follow each other yet, please follow me so I can follow you all back. My Instagram handle is at RHARGROV, R Hargrove without the E. And my Facebook, you can find me on Facebook at either Rebecca Hargrove, or my professional page is Rebecca L. Hargrove. Also, facebook.com/R Hargrove without the E. Thank you, Michael.
Hey, everybody. For those who don't know, my name is Nia. I'm 25 and I study classical music and I sing mostly right now. I'm singing a lot of jazz and R&B, some classical, but mostly jazz and R&B. And right now, as of today, I am very much so drained. I am tired, trying to internalize all of the history, the 401 years that we as Black people have endured is quite frankly exhausting. Because I'm 25, I grew up in the hood, to keep it a buck. I grew up in the hood, right? But, you know, thank God my mom put me in a lot of musical situations. So I grew up, you know, singing in choruses, predominantly white choruses, white Jewish choruses. So I had a taste of, you know, classical music and culture in large. But all that to say is I'm drained because I'm very disappointed in a lot of the organizations, especially the organizations that I grew up with that are not speaking up for the Black and brown children. And I'm very concerned about the upcoming Black and brown children that will be a part of these organizations at large. And that makes me very anxious and very angry. Yeah, but I grew up in the hood and all of us, you know, Black people are conditioned to be a certain way and you know, even to blend in with these situations of like toning down the Blackness, that type of thing. I'm just sick of it and tired of it. But between fighting with these organizations, with them not speaking up and then not, you know, oh, move to the left. Okay, hold on now. And them not speaking up in behalf of the children, you know, that have come through the program, I'm very disappointed. It's just, move to the right, man. Wait a minute. Is this good?
That's not real smooth.
Let me just go this way. Is that better?
Amen.
Okay, right there. Okay. I'm just tired because there's so many people that have reached out to me that I haven't heard from 5, 6, 7 years ago. But I'm saying I just wanted to check up on you, like it's just some sort of like white guilt thing, and it makes me very angry and it drains me. The fact that I have to get that message. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but it's just one of those things that are triggering me. And, you know, being young, I haven't had the opportunity. I haven't watched Roots. I don't know our full history as Black people. So the fact that maybe this is not the best time to do it, but I'm like, okay, maybe I should, you know, get more history, you know my people more. The fact that, you know, it took all these years for all this to get done and we still not finished it is just one of those things that is just, it's a lot. So I'm just taking it one step at a time, one day at a time, and just trying to make the best of it and trying to make art. You know, with all these emotions that we are having, the best thing that we can do as artists is create art born of this anger and born of all these emotions that we are feeling, you know, whether we feel optimistic or whether we feel tired. Like, this is the time that we make art with intention. Like, this is the type of thing in the art that reaches and touches souls, that Nina Simone made, that, you know, that I'm trying to connect to now as, you know, a young artist. So that's where I am. Yeah, that's about it. Short and sweet.
Love you, sis.
Love you guys. Love you, Rebecca.
Come on through, Allison.
Yes, I love you, sisters. Nia and Rebecca, I love y'all so much. Joy, it's so nice to meet you. Dr.
Allison, it looks like you're turned sideways. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, sorry. Is that
There we
better?
go.
I was trying to hold it
You're
sideways.
still beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I don't think you can get landscape on Zoom, so.
Okay.
This is better right side up. Cool.
Hey, now I know. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Allison Porter, and how am I feeling? I'm feeling so annoyed. I am feeling grief stricken. I am feeling angry. And I'm going to be very transparent. I'm going to be very honest, charge it to my head, I'm hard, all that good stuff. I'm grieving. It's a lot, and I don't just grieve for Ahmad. I don't just grieve for Brianna. It's been so many people, y'all. Like a Tatiana last year, like that shook me. Like Tamir, when that happened, like I have a little brother, like he was only 12, y'all. Like that shook me. Like it's a lot. And I don't know. I'm grief stricken, but I'm also just extremely angry, just that like it is 2020 and we still have to scream that our lives matter, because they don't to a lot of people, and people can scream all lives matter all they want. It's like, I don't want you to tell me all lives matter. Show me, show me that my life matters. Show me that I have the same value in your eyes as your friend, your sister, your colleague, and I don't know, for me, it's interesting because I have to be very honest. I graduated from the Manhattan School of Music 2018, Masters of Music, graduated Juilliard in 2016 with my bachelor's. After those years of schooling, I did not want to sing anymore. I did not. I was like, all right, so God, what we're going to do next? And I just kind of, I've been taking time just to really just try to find out who I am outside of those conservatories and outside of, people telling me what to do. But it just recently, it's crazy just because of that, everything that's going on. I've had no choice but to sing, I'm in Boston right now. I've been in Boston for the past 7 months. And there have been so many protests here, and just a lot of people feel our pain, but there's also been, I've experienced a lot of racism too, firsthand, and it's just like, for me, I'm not, I don't know, I don't feel safe sometimes protesting just because I'm here by myself. I don't have any family, I have a couple of friends, but I really, it's more for a safety issue. But instead, I've been going out to parks with my mask on, and I've just been singing. And I've been singing hymns, and I've been singing spirituals, just because like that is what I feel like I have to do. Like I might not be protesting with all of my brothers and sisters, but this is the way that I protest. Like this is how I show that Black Lives Matter, and people will come up and they'll clap and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that's so nice. So if you can clap for me, then you need to show up for my brother over there. Like just because he's not singing, that does not mean that he doesn't deserve the same exact attention that I have, and I'm just trying to do the best I can, like I said, like I been singing for a little bit, I've been writing poetry just because, I don't know, it's just like I said, I've been so angry that it's just like I needed somewhere to put all that rage down. So I have been writing, I've been singing, and I don't know, I've also just been, like Nia kind of said, we have to go back in our history, and that's what I've been doing with a full force for the past year, getting to know our ancestors, and I'm sorry to keep going back to this, but it's just like when we protest, it's not just for Michael Brown, it's not just for Trayvon Martin, it's not just for these people, it's for the people that we learned about in history books. I marched for Sarah Bartman, like I marched for the slave women, that came before us, because it's just like, even just the things that I read, where it's just like about the people who came before us, the people who we come from, of them just, I don't, like I just some of the stories are just, it's beyond heartbreaking. And it's just like, we all have to remember that we are where we are today because of everything that has happened, and we're trying not to just break, the police system. We're not just trying to break, like 100 years of hurt. No, we are trying to break centuries upon centuries of chains, you know, and that's going to take a lot of work. You know, it has taken work. We've had so many people, we've had so many activists and leaders come before us, you know, to pave the way for where we are, you know, and our work is not done, you know, and I'm grateful. You know, I used to be so afraid of the stage. I used to have horrible stage fright, you know, but like I'm blessed and I'm grateful that we do have a stage, you know, that we do have a stage, because people will look to us and people do listen to us, you know. So I feel like as of now, I do all of this research, I do all of this soul searching, so that if I do get on the stage again, that everyone will know that the stage is not, this is not my stage. This is my people's stage, you know, and it's time for y'all to hear us. And if you don't, like, then y'all won't like what comes next. You know, that's where I am at this point. You know, I'm angry. So, but that's all I have to say. But it's so nice to speak with you all. I'm grateful to be here. So, and thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jermaine. Again, you know, I really appreciate you.
Come on through, Aundi.
Hey, everybody. For those of you who know me and don't know me, I'm Aundi Moore. And some of you guys I know on this panel, and some of you guys I don't. And it's just so amazing to hear your stories and to see your strength, because it's very brave of you to be able to sit here and have this discussion on the quick. Thanks so much, Michael Mays, for having us, and Jermaine for inviting me as well to this panel, because I know Michael doesn't know me either. So I really appreciate the invitation. So the question is, how am I feeling? You know, that's a very loaded question. How am I feeling? I am a mother of 2 little Black boys, and I love them. They're handsome, they're intelligent, they're 2 years old and a 7-year-old, and they're cute, and they believe in God because they mama believe in God. So in my household, whatever I believe in, my boys believe in. So many people have that same type of thought process. Whatever I believe in, my kids are going to believe in it. And I want to be the voice to these mothers out here, white moms, Black moms. It starts really with us. What are we teaching our children? What are we saying to our babies? We can't change our parents. We can't change the elders in our family. I can't change them. You know, some things, unfortunately, have happened too much, too long to them, and they're not going to change. And it's on both sides, the Black, the white, the Asian, the Latinos, whatever your background is. Too much, too long has happened, and we can't change those people. However, the change can start with you, and the change starts with me. My babies have experienced, just so if you don't know about me, I am a classical singer, and I do very well in classical music. I made my debut at the Met recently, in Porgy and Bess as well, and singing Strawberry Woman. But I also sing all over the world in concerts and orchestras and symphonies. And a lot of times I am the only brown face in the room, and sometimes on stage as well as in the theater. And at times, you know, at first I used to get intimidated about that and feel somewhat uncomfortable about that. But I love what Oprah Winfrey said, is that when she walks in those rooms, those boardrooms, and she's the only, she does bring her ancestors. She's not alone. And that's how I think about it now. When I walk on those stages and when I'm in those rooms, I'm not by myself. But I'm telling you a little bit about my background because I want you to know that I am no different than you. I am a Democrat, let me just say that, but I have a lot of Republican tendencies, okay? I am very conservative with some of my ideas, but I am at heart a Democrat because I do have some more liberal thoughts, and I like toting the middle of the line. But the reason why I have decided to be on these types of panels is because of my two beautiful Black little boys, because like I said, I tend to tote in the middle of the line. I tend to be neutral about a lot of issues, and I tend to not make waves. I tend to be silent and try to make everyone else feel comfortable in my uncomfortability. I try to do those things, and I've done it for years and years and years. But my boys, my Black boys, they really matter. Not to say that I don't, honey. Let's get it straight, because I matter too. But, you know, can't nobody fight for my children but me, because they're children. And one day they will be men. And I want you to know, mother to mother, especially you ladies listening, parent to parent, you are the one who has to make the change. You're the one to make the difference. You're the one who's going to have to talk to these children and say, Jaquan over here is no different than Billy, okay? David is no different than Julio, okay? Jackie is no different than Kim Lee, okay? So when you take the time to realize and make those differences, parents, that you're going to stand in your truth, even though you may have your own uncomfortable conversations with yourself, and even though you may not believe all the things that you may be trying to teach your children, remember, you are the ones who make the difference. Okay, so that's the reason why I'm here. How I am feeling optimistic. I'm so proud to see so many people out there protesting who do not look like me. I'm so proud for my white sisters and my white brothers who are already close to me and friends who reached out to me. Some of my panelists feel some, other ways about this, and we all don't feel the same way. I want you to know that. I am proud that they took the time to reach out and say, hey, friend, how are you? How you doing? Because it's just like a relationship. When you're dating, let's think about it. When you got your man and you want your man to buy you flowers and take you to dinner and do sweet things for you, and you finally tell them, and then they do it, and then you question, well, why are you doing it? You're doing it only because I told you to do it. No, I am proud that my white friends, family, colleagues are finally listening and doing the things that we are saying do. So to my Black folks, don't beat them down because they finally listening. Take it in and listen and let them explain or talk to you or ask you questions, because this is the time to ask questions. I know people are tired, and it's not our job to explain how to treat me. It's not my job to, let me say that again, it's not my job to tell you how to treat me. But if that is what you need, I'm happy to tell you. I'm a human being just like you. I pray just like you. I go to church. I have a husband. I have two beautiful boys. I come from a wonderful family. I own real estate. I do a whole lot of things just like you. So the way that you want to be treated, treat me the same way. Loving, kind, caring. Take the moment and ask me a question before you judge and just make a decision by just looking at the way that I look. Yes, I am an opera singer. I own several businesses as well. I'm a real estate agent, one of the top producing agents in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. I have a team of agents. I also am a barbershop owner. I also have a hairline, even though every bit of hair in my head right now is mine, but she will put a cute wig on in a minute, okay? So let me just say to y'all folks out there, if you have questions and you want to know something about us, don't ask us in front of a whole bunch of other white folks. Pull us to the side. Put us to the side, because we will feel defensive. We will feel that we are being attacked just as you are. So if I have a question and I'm not sure, because like I said, I have white brothers and sisters. I actually have white in my family, so when we have questions or we're not sure about something, we pull each other to the side. That's the most respectful way to do it. If you have a question, you're just not sure how to ask it or what does it mean. Now, these situations right here with police brutality and them against us, you know, I know that this is going to take time. It takes time. But the best thing that I feel that we are doing right now is taking the time and just talking and really getting to know each other. And I feel that it's important for you to tell me about you just as much as I tell you about me, because you will see that we are very much so alike. We are very much so have parallel lives. I grew up in I'm a country girl, as you can kind of probably hear in my accent, my little twang, but I do also know how to code switch. And for those of you who are not clear about what code switching is, it is basically speaking not only intelligently with correct English, correct grammar, but it's also taking all of our our background, like me being from the country, or if I was a city girl, taking all of those lingo, those dialects out. That is what code switching is. And I do know how to do that very well. However, at this moment, I want you to get to know me just like I am. So I'm going to talk to you just like I am. So I'm here because of my boys. That's the only reason. Because let me tell you, I don't feel like talking. I don't feel like teaching and telling. But I will, because I want my babies to have a better experience in life than what is happening now. I want them to have a fantastic opportunity. And the opportunities that were afforded to me, and I'm going to be honest, a lot of them were afforded to me because I am a girl. Let me just say that again. Some of them were afforded to me because I was and am a girl, and I have lady parts. And sometimes men, unfortunately, don't get those same opportunities just because they are Black men. So I want to be the voice and the face to say, hey, they're no different. They're not threatening. You just have to approach us the same way you would like to be approached. Thank you. That's how I'm feeling.
Wow, that was wonderful, Aundi. I'm Adam Richardson. I'll try to keep, my thoughts pretty short and succinct. I reside in New York City, but I'm currently in Virginia. Kind of like Rebecca, I thought, this, 3 weeks was going to be a really cute little mini vacation, and it turned into 3 months. I'm feeling honestly like a lot of you, so I'm not gonna, rehash like a lot, because I agree with so much that you all have said of feeling angry, sad, optimistic, and all that. For me, I've had to separate things, when COVID hit, because I was dealing with those feelings of, okay, I have no work. How am I gonna get money? What am I gonna do next? What is the industry gonna look like? So I was dealing with a lot of those things. And then 2 weeks ago, the world has changed. And so then I've had to, in essence, put on more burden upon myself of thinking like, okay, I'm a Black man in America, which is something I've known for the past 33 years, but the world is watching. And it was actually something that Dr. Jackson put on her Facebook. It was maybe the week of the George Floyd murder. And I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you put something to the effect of, why is the world now taking, why is what's happening in the world more now than it's ever been? And a lot of people commented, and I said, my theory is time. So many people outside of the arts, restaurant workers, people that work in offices, whatever, so many people are at home. Even if you're working at home, most likely you can have the news on. And so many people are forced to sit and watch what's happening to people that look like all of the people on this panel. And I think I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I at least know that I'm guilty. That when, someone has been, murdered before, there's a 72-hour to about week cycle that it happens. And then because we're busy people, it trickles. That name starts to fade from social media. It starts to fade from the news cycle. And then we go on to something else. And I know that I'm guilty of that. And I think because of that for me, the George Floyd murder, while yes, it was horrific, the world got to see and watch and sit with that every day. They couldn't go to the gym. You can't go drop your kids off at the school. You can't go to a rehearsal. You can't do all these other things that we as Americans are just the work ethic that we have to keep moving. And so for me, where I am on today, June 11th, I'm going to say I'm leaning towards optimistic. I'm pretty much an optimistic person, I would say, normally. I mean, I do have my pessimistic days as well, as we all do, because we're humans. But I've been watching almost any and every artistic panel I can. Like, if someone posts it, I'm going to be there. I want to absorb as much information as I possibly can. And, a lot of the things that a lot of, our Black colleagues have been saying on these panels are just so many things that we know. And it's nothing new to me, but I get such a sense of joy that now everyone is hearing. These are things that we talk about in the corners of the rehearsal room, or in our group chats, or, in any sort of thing that we can, when we feel safe. And now, like this platform that we have with the Dallas Opera, with the Quick, I feel safe and empowered to do that. Because I think a lot of what people have felt, which someone says, we feel nervous to say our grievances because we're always told the business is so small, so you have to be careful with what you say. And now people are laying it out for everyone to hear. So now I'm saying it's in your hands, to all these companies out here. You can either take what we're saying and run with it, or you can continue to do, the top 10 greatest opera hits and have a cast that looks like the driven snow in Alaska. It's up to you. It's really your choice of what you want to do with a lot of this information, because we can say it and we can regurgitate it as much as you want. And, I see, a lot of these companies out here that, will have, maybe a white person from their artistic staff, or they'll give their platform to someone to have. But if you're not going to do anything with it, it's kind of a waste of time. One of my high school teachers, Robert Brown, he said, education without practical application is useless information. And that's something that has stuck with me all of my years. And so if we're giving you all of this information and you do nothing with it, then we're wasting our breath. So, I know it's going to take time, change. It doesn't happen overnight. I totally understand that. I'm a person of the world. I get that. But if I start looking in your 2022, 23, 24 seasons, and I see the same couple of people, be it white and or the same Black people, because I'm going to talk about that as well. Like, if I see the same couple of Black people as well, then for me, and the last thing I'm going to say is, something that I've been thinking about very strongly is, in a way, of course, I'm very saddened that, these deaths have happened. And I'm very saddened that, COVID has happened. But, if we come out of this time looking like we did before this time, then this time would have been such a waste of time. And so that's what I'm going to end with on that.
Hey, can y'all hear me? All right, cool. I'm Raiquan Thomas. I'm 24 years old. I'm a 2019 recent graduate of James Madison University. I majored in vocal performance, and then I minored in music industry. I'm in Virginia. I'm in Harrisonburg, Virginia, actually, but I'm from Portsmouth, Virginia, the hood. I think Nia said she was from the hood. I'm from this neighborhood called Chuxton, pretty much the hood. So, seeing George Floyd died was it was traumatic, So personally, it hit hard because my dad was killed by a cop in 2001. So that was like, whoo, talking to my mom, when he was shot and killed, they said it was his fault because it was a speedway like chase through like Norfolk, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Williamsburg. And when they tried to trap him, they said he hit the police with his car. But when I was talking to my mom the other day, she's saying they're lying. They didn't have body cam and stuff. And this is 20 years later. He died in 2001, so I was 5. So I'm like, well, what if my dad was actually brutally murdered? You know, and I talked to my grandma about it. I'm like, hey, why didn't you get the NAACP involved? Because they wanted to be involved in everything. And she was like, all she kept saying was she doesn't know what she was going through during that time. She was so stressed. You know, she was saying the NAACP was trying to get involved. She was telling me the Muslims trying to get involved. And I was like, you know, it's crazy because I don't know whether my dad was in the right or wrong. You know, what was he actually just killed? You know, so I question that. I still question it to this day. I'm thankful that I never, even though he was killed by a cop, that I never been mad at white people, been angry at white people, been angry at cops, and that I used his death to motivate me. You know, I was blessed with a full ride to JMU to major in vocal performance, and that was kind of transitioning from Portsmouth to JMU to an all pretty much white school was like, what? Like, it's totally different. Even transferring, I know Aundi, Jermaine, and Adam went to governor school. Even going to governor school was like, whoa, you know, because I wasn't used to it, you know. I'm used to like hood people and stuff, but it's a blessing. I think Adam, you're right. Like, if we don't come out of this time like with something, like we should be, like me personally, I've been investing like, okay, I want to do vlogs. I bought me a camera. Like, I want to do more music. Like, I'm a rapper. I haven't even sang opera in like a year. Like, I rap and like make albums. And like, I just released an album, just like trying to like do something, not waste the time, waste this time. Because like, I'm a musician, but I've been working as a secretary at a high school, you know, because there's no music opportunities in Harrisonburg, you know. I sing at a church sometimes, but there's not that much, you know, music opportunities. So I think like really taking this time to like digest things and chill and like just take a break. I know most of you guys are like busy, but I think taking this time and like writing and like meditating on your artistic abilities, I think that's what's gonna make this time more productive. And I don't know, I think we have a lot to ponder, you know. I mean, I've been watching videos in Portsmouth. They're taking down Confederate, you know, monuments downtown, and I'm like, wow, like people are actually like doing something about this, which I mean, I love, you know. And I'm tired of hearing of, well, why are they tearing down the Targets and looting and stuff? And it's like, yo, like y'all, I mean, white people, like y'all don't understand the pain. You know, you're looking at the bad stuff, and of course I don't agree with it, but I mean, it's getting y'all attention, right? So it's time to make a change. It's time to grow, you know. I think this is a time to grow and to, like you said, Aundi, to really have conversations with our white brothers and white sisters. Because some of them, everybody's been, I bet all you guys have been getting reached out to by your white brothers and sisters. And they're like, what can we do to help? And it's kind of hard because you're like, well, did you not care about me before? Was I just this black token? Like I know all you guys have been black tokens everywhere. So it's like, did you not care about me before? You know, and it's like, I don't know. So I feel overwhelmed, but I'm feeling hopeful. And I pray that we can just continue this fight and actually get justice for George Floyd and his family, and to all the families of police brutality and racism. So.
Go ahead, Nia.
Can I say something really quick? Or Jermaine, you have to respond to your question, or are you going to respond to your question? Okay.
No, you
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's an incredible thinker and musician. We were talking about justice, and I was like, well, what does justice mean to us? Like, what does that even mean? Is justice a part of is it a part of throwing somebody in jail? Is justice centered around punishment of a crime? Or is justice something that needs to be applied to of society, not centered around prison? Like, is justice everybody you know, living freely and living with respect throughout, you know, whether you're Black or you're white or you're Asian. Is it that, or is it like, I don't believe that justice is just throwing somebody in jail. Just, you know, because you killed somebody, you should be in jail for this amount of time. I think it's way beyond that, you know? Aundi.
Go ahead, Aundi.
Okay, so look, I'm gonna tell you what I think justice is. Justice for me is if there are two men or women who do the same exact crime, they should get the same exact punishment. So if I went and robbed a liquor store and a white woman went and robbed a liquor store, then I should get 2 years just like she does, and a slap on the wrist. Don't give me 20 years and give her 2, because what was the difference? And she has the same everything. I mean, we robbed, but we picked out the same things. We did the same exact thing. And unfortunately, when it comes to brown and Black people, they tend to give us heavier time or just completely take away our life. And I don't understand how white brothers and sisters who do the same thing and get a totally different experience. So justice for me is whatever the crime, because I mean, let me just say, there are bad people, there are bad Black people. Y'all hear me? They're bad Black folks, they're bad brown people, they're bad white folks. As at the end of the day, they all are people. They're people. And they did the same exact things. There's no race that has only good folks. No race, not even among our, you know, we have the best intentions, and sometimes life can turn us around. So to me, I feel like the justice system needs to have some sort of a standard. What is, you know, if you go and if a man dies because you shot and killed him, and it was the same type of situation, and I mean, and not self-defense shot and killed, but, you know, shot and killed a man out of just being mean and ugly, there should be the same crime for the same time. I do believe that folks should go to jail. I do believe it. I have to say the movie Just Mercy changed my mind about death row, though. That movie changed my mind because there's so many men, unfortunately, on death row who may have not done it because they didn't have the funds to have someone fight, you know. But if you did the crime and it can truly been proven that you did the crime, it should be the same exact. I feel like somehow there needs to be a justice system that it's the same exact time frames or whatever. That's to me what justice is. And I also feel that police should not have immunity. I know that is not always, you know, that's not popular, but I feel like they should not have immunity. They should have to go through the same process as I would. If I put my knee on a man's neck and unfortunately he passed away, I would have been arrested that same day. And they would have taken me to jail. They would not have tried to prove me guilty first. I feel that police should have no immunity. So that's what
in this case, Tiffany, I'm gonna let you to respond to that. But Aundi, in this case, to what you just said, what if that was a Black cop on top of a white man's neck?
Exactly.
And that's just Black on Black crime.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which is also something we apparently don't talk about enough, but I think we do. Tiffany, go ahead.
Yes, so I grew up in the hood in New Haven. So shout out to all of the opera singers from the hood, you know, because that's an interesting thing to be in the hood and people saying, yo, Tiff, shut up, right? So that was fun for me. And it was no escape when I went off to the University of Michigan. As a matter of fact, I felt like I was more damaged moving to Ann Arbor than I was in my own hood. Not because of my overall experience, but because of what a lot of these institutions are lacking. So let me just say, in growing up in the hood in New Haven, to speak to what Aundi is saying, in the perfect world, I agree with you, Aundi, for sure. But as long as we have economic disparities, as long as we have educational disparities, as long as the police officers are expected to respond to schools when there are problems, they're expected to respond in so many different situations, what you speak of will never exist. So now, I grew up in New Haven in Church Street South housing projects. I don't know if you guys have ever been to New Haven, but Yale is in New Haven, of course. So right across the street from the New Haven train station is where I grew up. I'm 49 years old. I was there in the 70s when it was a beautiful place to live. And then in the 80s, because of crack cocaine, the neighborhood just completely descended, right? Now, who pumped the crack cocaine into the neighborhoods? And who placed the guns into my neighborhoods? Okay, so let's just talk about that. In the 1980s, crack addicts were criminalized.
Teach us, teach us.
I'm gonna tell y'all because I was there and I cried over many of friends and I sang over many of funerals of dead bodies of men who were crack addicts and were considered to be criminals. They criminalized crack, but they did not criminalize cocaine. I wonder why. Okay, now, my neighborhood. Now we fast forward to 2020 with opioid addiction. Now, I still live in New Haven. Now I see a whole bunch of my white brothers and sisters downtown New Haven looking just buzzed out of their minds on opioids, right? And there's some of them are getting the help that they need because now this is declared a health crisis. And let me just say, it should be. It should be. But Black folks were not given the same humanity and help. My father died a crack addict. And my father was a veteran and never got the help that he needed. So this is why we have the problems we have because of these double standards. Why did these double standards come about? Well, we can go all the way back to minstrelsy, America's first form of entertainment. White folks in blackface imitating Black folks in stereotypes, right? That culture metastasized into we like the culture, we just don't like the innovators of that culture, okay? So now somebody mentioned Sarah Baartman. If you don't know Sarah Baartman, you should read about her. She was a South African woman from the Khoisan tribe in South Africa. She was abducted from South Africa and sold into the circus in Europe as a sideshow because in her country, the women were in her tribe, the women were built in a very particular way. They were very buxom and they had very large enlarged bottoms and very small waists, right? And so she was a sideshow in Europe. When she died destitute, they had her body and her sex organs on display in a museum in France for well over a century until Nelson Mandela demanded that they return her body to her country so she could have a proper burial. So now when people walk around here injecting shit into their bottoms, excuse my French, and enlarging their tops and enlarging their bottoms, I'm not going to name any families' names. Now it's beautiful to be full figured. But Sarah Baartman died for that. So the reason why we have double standards is because when a Black person is an innovator of such, we can talk about rock and roll. We can use the same model for rock and roll. Big Mama Thornton recorded Hound Dog, okay? Elvis stole it and created something called rock and roll or rockabilly, but not really. She died destitute and Elvis's estate is still making money. This is the plague of Black people, see? So this is why we will never have what Aundi is talking about until we acknowledge these things have happened to us for centuries and centuries. The very thing that get us killed is now appropriated by people that continue to make money off of us. But when we do it, it's barbaric music. I mean, rock and roll was called Negro music, the music of the Negro. We don't want our teens listening to this music and bring them down to the level of the Negro. So this is a cultural problem. And like Aundi said and other people said, it will not be solved overnight. And I think one of the things that will help to solve this with Aundi said, we got to start with the young people, the adults, whatever. We got to start with the youth. White kids need to be taught Black history and Black contribution in music. I teach at Choate Rosemary Hall, one of the most privileged schools in the country, in the world. And trust and believe, they get all my Blackness up in them voice lessons. They get every bit of my Blackness, and we also sing classical music. But at the same time, we as educators have to insist that institutions will teach white kids Black contribution so that when they're of age, they understand that we have made significant contributions. The music they love, the sneakers they're wearing, and the hairstyles that they love were innovated by us, and they need to learn this at a young age.
Yeah, I just would want to say, just to kind of jump off from where Dr. Tiffany Jackson absolutely just bringing us all of that is, I want to take it back to something that we all relate to, and this is the other thing. Like and I know I've expressed this over the last 10 days, and it's not a popular opinion, and I'm just going to lay it out here. I think that if all we're asking arts organizations to do, frankly, is just do a few, add more Black music to their things, that's a cop-out too. Like adding more Black bodies, that's a cop-out. That's easy. They can hire a Black person. They can commission a Black composer. They can do that. What they need to be willing to do is hand over the reins of the tradition they've been guarding and let Black people say things through it. There are so many of us. I'm sorry, look at the regional orchestras in our land. Look at the regional opera houses in our land. Many of them, I'm a member of the Conductors Guild. I'm a member of the League of American Orchestras. There have been so many music director searches, and so many of them, and I'm proud that, women are finally getting their say, but so many of them have been women or men that are Latinx or white or whatever, but not a single one of those people that have won those searches are people that look dark. I think there's a reason for that. I'm not saying that they're not talented. I'm not saying that they're not talented, that they don't believe, that they don't deserve the opportunity. But when you see 15 different regional orchestras, and I know there were Black and brown men and women in those searches, and not a single one of them won that music directorship, that is a problem. And those people should be conducting. Like, I saw my own hometown orchestra, Philadelphia Orchestra, doing, Women Now, Black Now, Beethoven Now. I'm like, well, why aren't you got 5 Black world-class conductors up in that city right now? Why doesn't Yannick Nézet-Séguin step down and say, this Beethoven series is going to be conducted by all the Black conductors we've got within a 50-mile radius? That would be saying something.
Yeah. May I just,
Rebecca.
And then Jermaine, I want you to, because I know you haven't said anything yet, but you just sparked something.
This is for y'all. Go ahead.
Yes, my brother. You pronounce your name Cailin?
Cailin, yes.
Cailin, hi, nice to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
Just what you were saying on that, and I wanted to share with you all. I got a little shook because I heard some music playing in the background. I was on a Zoom call earlier this morning with some casting directors and of Black casting directors, white casting directors. We were just having open dialogue with actors about the lack of Black people in the spaces that truly matter. It's not enough just to put Black faces and bodies on stage or in front of the lens. It has to be in the casting offices. It has to be the directing staff. It has to be the creative staff, the artistic directors. Like, it goes well beyond what we see in the finished product. And you reminded me of that. And in that Zoom call, we actually got Zoom bombed by someone who dropped in our call and started playing a song called I Hate N-Words. So I got a little shook that was about to happen to us right now, because we're having a very productive conversation. But to that point, just like Aundi and Maurio and myself, we were in the Met Porgy, and you just reminded me of so many things that I will not bite my tongue about.
Talk about it.
On our very first day of rehearsal for ensemble rehearsals, it was said to us, it took me 5 years, or excuse me, it racked my brain for 5 years as to how I would find 100 Black singers. 64 to be exact for the chorus. It racked my brain for 5 years where I was going to find 64 to 100 Black singers. And I remember everyone in the room turning to each other and being like, okay, well, sis, you went to Juilliard, that's across the street. Well, I went to Oberlin. Okay, we went to New School. Okay, you went to Morgan, you went here. We're at the same schools you're looking for the white singers. We are there. That's where you can find us, but you don't look for us. That. And then what pained me so is that when we did have experiences of people in the house experiencing otherism and I don't want to outright call it racism, but it's very othering to be in a traditionally white space and constantly reminded of your Blackness, and that the utility of your Blackness is meant for this one Black production that we relegate you to. Yeah, so that I would file, yeah, racism, yes, and I file it under the micro and macro aggressions that we experience on a daily basis. Do you know, in the administration, the only Black person I could find worked in HR, but there was no one above on the artistic or creative or in any of the floors above HR, which sits in the basement, that I could go to and feel in a safe space to be like, excuse me, I experienced this. It makes me feel uncomfortable. And when AGMA got roped into it, they were like, well, of course, there's no diversity person in AGMA to go to because they don't value that. Oh, well, why didn't you come to us? I don't know if I feel safe coming to you. You represent them. You don't really represent me. And the terrible thing is AGMA is supposed to represent me. But whenever I want to ask about getting more money, all you care about is getting my $100 to $200 a year. So I don't know if you're going to run and tell the house that I'm having a problem and put me out there and now people don't want to hire me anymore. I don't know. I don't feel safe or comfortable because there's no one to create a safe space to go to. And so we had to have very hard mediated discussions about these things. And it became very clear that at no point before this 100-person Black person cast got to the house, and with that, it being 30 years since they had done the show, that no one had ever said, we should make it our priority to not only try to cast more Black singers, but to hire someone that can help us find them. And then hire someone that can help facilitate a safe space for them here. And then maybe we need more creative people to have the ideas to say, oh my God, they weren't even going to throw a celebration for us for opening night. It wasn't until we were told that we were not invited to the gala that I said to a friend of mine who wasn't even in the cast, well, I guess we should just organize something ourselves. And he and I found the outside funding. Someone was going to cut a very large check for us to have a party at the Empire rooftop. And it just happened to get to the 5th floor that I was doing that. And I got called into a meeting where I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, if you guys could give us a photographer, that'd be great. It'd be nice to have a step and repeat so we could take pictures and feel like we just made our Met debuts or something like that. It'd be really wonderful. And they were like, hold up, wait a minute. We should talk to Peter Gelb about this. And Peter Gelb was like, y'all, we need to throw that party for them. Whatever they need to have that party, we have to make it happen because that's a terrible look. And it's absolutely right. But the fact that there was nobody at that level to even have that idea, what does that say? We don't occupy the spaces in the boardrooms. So you just sparked that, and that's my TED Talk.
You know, Becca, oh, sorry. Oh, you said it's okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate you, Jermaine. Rebecca, just going off of you, you know, what that says is something that I think has been said a lot over the past centuries, is that they don't respect us. I think that is one of the biggest things that I have seen and that I've experienced, is that they really don't truly respect us, you know? And like I said, I want to say I don't want to go back to history, but at the end of the day, like, history always repeats itself. So, Dr. Jackson, I thank you for bringing up Sarah Bartman again, because, you know, like, another part to her story, you know, and I hope that this is kind of crude, so I hope that this doesn't disturb anyone. But, you know, she was sold to an animal trainer after a while, you know, and he impregnated her because he wanted to see her as an experiment, you know, wanted to see, like, what would happen, and then just threw her out on the street, and she had all these diseases and died, you know. And for me, it's just like, it just reminds me that when our Constitution was made, it was not made for us in mind. When the Constitution was made, we were considered property to them. So it's just like, how do we get justice from a system that didn't even see us as people? You know, like, how do we get our, like, that's where I am right now. You know, it's just like finding that place where it's just like, okay, like, we're living in a society that has been following the same rules, the same things for hundreds and hundreds of years. But it's just like, now all of a sudden, you know, everyone is just like, oh my God, all these injustices, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, and, you know, like people have said, you know, it's just like, this has been happening for such a long time. You know, this is happening everywhere. Like, even, I don't know, just went to conservatories for 6 years. Out of those 6 years, I had 0 Black teachers, period. You know, someone said in their feed, like, educators, you know, like, it really does start there, you know. Like, I also, Juilliard is right across the street from the Met, you know, it's all Lincoln Center, everything is all connected, you know. And it's just like, I felt like I had no one to go to ever. Like, who am I going to go to talk about my Black voice? Who am I going to talk to about these people talking about my hair constantly, and talking about my weight, and talking about the certain particular roles that fit me, not because of my voice, not did or what I you know, what I sang, you know. It's just like, just automatically assumed because of the color of my skin. And it's just like, I felt like I had no one to go to but myself and my mama, you know. So it's just like, it's very difficult to even, like, fathom, like, what justice is, you know. Because for me, it's just like, everything just has to be torn down, you know. That is just my true opinion, you know. It's just like, our ideals, just everything, you know. Just like when Rebecca said that, you know, where could you find 100 Black singers? Like, to me, that is one of the biggest slaps in the face, because it's just like, y'all, like, the people, whoever asked that question, they might not know 100 Black singers, but if you had actually asked a person of color, they could tell you about 200, you know, like, at least, you know. It's just, it's not that there aren't 100 Black singers, it's that you didn't want to go out of your way to even try, you know, to even try to find us, you know, to even add us into this conversation, you know. Just like, why aren't we on the boards of these companies? Why aren't we up here, you know? Question, but it's just like, it's the same answer as to why 2 people who make the same amount of money, you know, can't get the same things in life, you know. It's just like, I'm just this facade that just like, oh yeah, if you work hard, everything's gonna be fine, you know. I'm just like, that's interesting, because I see one white person over here who has one job and they're doing just fine, you know. But it's just like, but my sister over here who could have got the same job because she's just as educated but didn't for certain reasons, you know, now has to get 3 jobs, you know, and it's barely getting by, you know. And it's just like, this whole system is just completely wrecked, and it's so beyond opera, it's so beyond the classical singer realm, you know. It's just this country was built on so much blood, you know, and it was built on the backs of, you know, it's just, there's a lot that needs to change, and there's a lot that needs to happen. And for me, I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but yes, I understand we do have to talk to our young people, and it is us that it has to be, you know, to start with. But one thing I will never do is I will never stop talking to these elderly people. I will never stop talking to the people older than me, you know. Like, because for me, it's just like, look at the people who are in office. Look at the people who make these laws and who, you know, like, do all this stuff. They're older, you know, they are, you know, like, older than me, you know. And it's just like, I can't give up on them, you know, because that's just I can't, you know, because I'm so tired of seeing these things. I'm so tired of, you know, yeah, like, here's another death, you know, and then it's like, okay, what are we going to do about it? We march, blah, blah, blah. But then it's just like, we have to convince these lawmakers to do what needs to be done, you know. And if look at our president, you know, this man, he's in his 60s, 70s. I don't know his exact age, but he is the president of the United States of America, you know, and he, like, we already know how he feels about our other people who are not of his race. And you know, it's just like, that's, for me, that's the biggest reason why, like, I feel we have to talk to that generation. Yes, it's hard to change their minds, blah blah, whatever, da 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 da. However, it just, if we don't, we've seen what happens. We've seen it, you know. So that's all I have to say. Sorry, just
come on, Mario.
I will say, going back to what Rebecca said, you know, about, you know, it shouldn't be this difficult to find Black singers. But what's interesting is when we do find these, say, 100 or Black singers, it's been made to a big deal. I don't know if anyone saw in the New York Times when they said that Raiquan was going to be in the season, it was specifically about how the Met did this worldwide search to find African American singers. And then what I also found that was interesting is when I read it, in 1985, they only had 3 Black singers in the chorus. 34 years later, that number went up to 6. I'm sure there were so many other people of color that could have been in the chorus, but that's something that I wanted to just piggyback on Rebecca. And then also, it does make a difference having a Black educator. I was fortunate doing my master's at East Carolina. I had the privilege and honor to study with Dr. Louise Toppin, and she pretty much happened to have most of the Black students, and it really did make a difference to have someone that I felt like I could go to and also be exposed to spirituals and be exposed to other art songs written by Black composers. And I just wanted to also say that as someone that has had a Black teacher in the university level, that it makes a huge difference. That was all.
Mr. Mays.
Well, it's really hard to know how to talk about this. But I've got like 8 pages of notes here that I've just been frantically scribbling, you know, and one of the things that, you know, that was spoken about was breaking the generational patterns, speaking to the children. I came up, you know, y'all talk about, you know, you came from the hood, right? And that was where some of y'all were from, the hood, you know, and I came from the trailer park. And so, you know, I'm the other end of the spectrum, rural America, white. I mean, I was called white trash most of my life, you know, and I grew up with the N-word as my daily bread every day.
Speak on it.
Well, like, everybody in my family was racist. And I'm you know, I'm speaking of my extended family, my immediate family, they're as racist as I was racist. It's that kind of racism that's, you know, it's intrinsic. It's bred into you. And it's really hard to try to, like, to come to terms with the things that you've heard in your life as a kid. As a little kid, when I would get told, take that penny out of your mouth, because some N-word might have had that in their mouth. As a child, Blackness was always associated with dirty, with filth, with smelling bad, with laziness. My hometown, I grew up in what's called Cut and Shoot, Texas. I had a chapter of the Ku Klux Klan in the town that used to meet. The Ku Klux Klan did an embargo around our school because they weren't their kids weren't allowed to wear all white clothes to school, so they did a protest around our school because their rights were being infringed upon. That's the world I grew up in, and you know, it's different from people that come from this place and then come to be. I'm a democratic socialist now, you know, full disclosure. But if you grew up as a liberal, as a progressive, in a progressive area, and always understanding that this is just right and this is wrong, that's one thing. But if you grew up having it fed to you as like bottle-fed racism as a kid, and then it's not everybody can make that turn. Some kids just don't have, they lack the ability. The people I grew up with, I can talk to them all fucking day long, and it's nothing. It's just like boom, 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 because it doesn't sink in, And I don't know where I'm going with this, but like, yes, we can talk to people because there is proof that it works. Like, it does work. Like, what you were saying earlier about some of us need help, and it's not fair to ask you always to put this burden. Like, the thing about people calling, it reminds me of whenever you're grieving and you've lost somebody, and you get like 1,000 messages. Oh, how people you hadn't talked to in 10, 20 years, and they want to update on your dead friend. But I haven't spoken to you in 10 years. And so now I have to go through this whole, what I've been doing for 10 years and all that, and then get to the part about the grief and all this stuff. It's not really fair to do that to a person who's grieving. And that's what that's where, as the white community, the official representative, like, we need to understand that the whole community, that your whole community is grieving. It's been grieving for centuries. And it's not your responsibility to teach us, how to understand your grief. We need to be open and listening and trying to do that on our own. And when somebody does go the extra mile, which I have so many friends in my life that have done that for me, because honestly, people, if someone called me a racist today, I would say, yeah, you're right, but I'm working on it. I'm not David Duke racist, but I might be Joe Biden racist. Like, I might be. I don't know.
Well, I think just to answer to you, Michael. I think that there are two types, and that's the one thing. Like, I remember, let's take it all the way back to 2016. Okay, we're going back to that election. I was in Bennington, Vermont. Vermont is the second whitest state in the union right now, and I moved up to Vermont in 2013 to take a job. I'm in Bennington, Vermont. I conduct the large choir there. I was sitting at a bar with a couple members on the board. Everyone's talking about the election, and people are like, "Oh my God! So you're the only black person sitting here. What do you think?" And I kind of folded back my arms, and I just said, the only difference about this election and everything else is that for me, we know that we know it's going to be a problem for us either way, but white folk are starting to be scared of Trump. That's the main difference. And when I think about how what's happening now, and because of everyone having to bear witness to the methodical, slow death of George Floyd, there's a lot of grieving going on. Yes, there's grieving because it's been continual grief for the black community and for black people. But the gift that Trump has actually given to America is that white people have had to stare their lack of innocence in the face. They are not innocent, and they've actually had to do some grieving about that. And the thing that's different, they have to grieve for their innocence, because the other piece of this, and there have been so many civil rights leaders that have talked about this. One great white author that's talked about the construct of whiteness has been Tim Wise, and he's talked about this over time. And he's like, look, you talk about being in the trailer park, but think about the fact that people in the trailer park were fed that stuff about whiteness because they were the poor whites that the rich whites needed to keep as a buffer between them and the people of color.
Fuck rap. Hell yes.
You understand what I'm saying? We've all actually been systematically systematically oppressed. It's just that they convinced the poor white people that they were part of the white club, and so they need to keep the black people and the brown people down so that maybe eventually they'll creep up. But they had no intention of letting you into the club. They might let one or two of you in a certain amount up so that they can keep the lie and the illusion going. But that's different. And the thing is, truth be told, they've allowed some of us, some of us have bought into that too. They'll allow 2 or 3 people to trickle up the pipeline to say, oh, look, here's a successful black, that bootstrap. No, the hell they didn't. You decided that that was an okay black person for you to promote so that you can continue to tell other black people or just keep grinding. No.
I mean,
very quickly, I want to speak to this very quickly, Adam, real quick. I promise I'll be quick. I believe that white kids have been failed. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I have taught that demographic for about 25 years. Okay? And I do a lot of healing of these kids. Right? And sometimes I feel a little like, Lord, how did I get this assignment?
Come on, Tiff.
Because it's been an assignment. Because I have kept white kids from wanting to kill themselves, slice their wrists, purge. It's gonna make me cry because I love these kids too. And I'm telling you, I do a lot of healing because of the damage that has been done to them that was done to you, Michael.
Talk about it.
It's damaging to teach kids to hate. I don't give a damn what it is you're teaching them to hate. You know, whether it is a particular color of an animal, the color of a house, right? Black folks are taught how to appreciate things. You know, my mother was born in Jim Crow South. My mother picked cotton in the 50s. This woman could not go to school. My mother has an 8th grade education. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm an overachiever. I said, I'll be damned, I'm gonna get every degree in the land for my mother. But I'm telling you, Michael, you were damaged and a whole bunch of kids I'm teaching are damaged. And the reason why they aren't helped is because people think because they have resources and money and access that that's going to be the cure for them. But I'm telling you, these kids are really very sick. And I prevent a lot of them from wanting to die. But let me tell you, that's what it does to them because it's abuse. It's a form of abuse to teach a kid to hate because I'm going to tell you what abuse does. The people who are supposed to protect you become an abuser to you. You grow up not believing a damn thing people say to you. And that's why most white people don't believe nothing. If you tell them that something is green, they know damn near it's green, but they can't see. And then what that breeds is amorality. And that's what it is. It's amoral. So you have a whole bunch of white people who are amoral because they have been taught to hate. And when you teach kids to hate, it is a form of abuse. And so then they grow up not having any moral basis for not a damn thing they do. I have to teach these kids purpose. I have to inject why. Why do you want to go to Yale? Why do you want to go to Brown? You can go to Podunk University and get a damn education if you apply yourself. So I just want to say that to you, Michael, that the thing that racism does, it's perpetuated. And for these kids at Choate to see my black ass, who is well educated, but also very much a black in street and hood, they appreciate me so much. The letters I get from these kids, they confess things to me that sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I think I need to tell my superiors that these kids are telling me these things because this is not in my job description to be their saviors. But it has become a calling for me that I fight about all the time, but I follow the call of what God would have for my life. I save a lot of kids' lives for the shit that's being taught to them. And the damage of racism is teaching these kids not to have belief systems.
Can I just say that this disease that we're all fighting right now, COVID, right? It's so fucking dangerous that we shut the entire economy down. We suspended air travel. You can't go outside. You got to wear a mask. That virus is pretty deadly though, right? It's killed about 100,000 people. Oh, what a terrible number. But racism and white supremacy is then makes that number look like a drop in the bucket. So what are we going to do for that? If we're willing to do all this other stuff, we'll stop our lives. What else can we do now? I mean, use that same amount of fucking effort to change this thing so we can feel our goddamn. Sorry, I'm
go ahead. No, but
that's all right.
It gets you there.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say, and I think that's why education, for me, growing up, education was everything. Is so important. I had a conversation, a white colleague of, I guess, in our realm, opera, FaceTimed me unannounced, and I was like, I took a beat. I was like, oh, like, do I want to talk about this? So I was like, I did. And we were talking, and we've known each other a long time, and so I knew where said person stood on certain things. And they were like, I was raised conservative, and I just don't understand why I have to say out loud that I'm not a racist. And I was like, well, as a person of faith, would you believe someone, if they couldn't say that they were a Christian, if they were like, well, I don't want to say that I'm not a Christian, would you believe that person? I personally wouldn't. Like, if you can't say that to me, that for me, that's a problem. If you can't say out of your mouth, I am a Christian, then I'm going to question why you can't say that. And so we were talking, and I was talking about, like, racism in the business, or just like racism in general, due to like the nature of the recent events. And said person was like, well, that was so long ago. And I said, stop. I was like, your version of racism are people in white hoods and robes. Your version of racism is lynching. Racism is more than these hot button history things that we learn in our history books that don't even tell the entire story. I was like, racism has, as people, people adapt. Racism has changed over the course of the civil rights era. And to note, the civil rights era, most of our parents and grandparents were most likely still alive. That was not that long ago. And those sort of things have definitely infiltrated in the arts. And I think that's why a lot of people are like, oh, well, we're in the arts, like, we're liberal. We celebrate, people of every sort of realm. And it's like, but do you really? Like, if you pick and choose people to be of a certain level of what you want your company to be, but you can't see that you are dismissing a whole other group of people, then how are you better than any of these other people out here? And I think these are the things that like just slowly infiltrate into multiple societies. But obviously we're on the arts forum, so I'm going to speak mainly from the arts perspective. That these things are just so, as we say, people are blind to them. If you tell them it's blue, they'll say no, it's not. And I think that is so. And I think that, again, white fragility. People are offended, or hopefully they won't be as offended now, but were offended even if you were to call them out before, because they're like, oh, well, and they get so worked up about it. And it's like, well, you need to take a beat and realize, like, why are you getting so worked up about this? Is it because someone said this to you, or is it because you can't honestly say that you have done the work that you've needed to do as a person to actually see how you have benefited from white privilege, how you have benefited from so many things in this business, whether you are with the way you look and being white, or the way that you are, your sexuality in being white, because that's something that's also not talked about. How certain, white gay men in this business are promoted sometimes into a certain way. And I think there's just, it's so many microcosms of what we know as Black people on this panel that we have seen for years. Yeah, that's what I just wanted to say.
Adam, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Like when you engage with folks, like your white friend, the white friend that kind of does that and says, "Why am I right?" Do you feel like, and this is the whole panel, do you like feel like by and large when white people are doing that it's more, they're so concerned about being perceived as racist, and there's always be more concerned about being perceived as racist than analyzing their own racism in their lives, because it's like you said, it's the guy in the hood, it's the guy in the red hat, it's not us. We're the good guys, we're not like those guys. But
yeah, Michael, I just want to answer that directly. Yes, I think that if someone can look at racism objectively and understand that it's such a terrible thing that they don't want to be associated with it, but then don't want to do the work and see what are the actionable things that I do that fall under racism. And to Adam's point about his friend saying, but it was so long ago. Yeah, maybe not. It was so long ago that it's trickled down into the present day, into these little things that you don't even realize. Like, why do you grab your purse whenever you see a Black man walk past you on the street then? If you're not racist, if you truly don't have it in your heart to assume that that man would cause you harm, what is it in your brain that tells you that any Black man with black skin or a woman with black skin would cause you harm? You need to look internally at that. Or to the woman, Amy Cooper, who called the police on that brother in Central Park while choking out her own dog. She cared more about calling the police on a man knowing good and well what they would probably do to him with just the inkling. Don't even get me started on white female tears. But white female tears are the strongest weapons. Those are weapons of mass destruction. Do you
just fell out of his chair? Did you see that?
Men have hung from trees based on the word of white women.
Come on.
Emmett Till was dragged at the back seat of a car and thrown into the Mississippi River for the tears of a white woman who on her deathbed said he never did anything to her. So knowing this, ma'am, if you understand and know that and can call yourself a liberal and call yourself to not be racist, why would you call the police on this man knowing all he did was ask you to put a leash on your dog that you don't even care about?
But that's the big. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Don't mean to jump in, but that's the big thing that's the big cognitive dissonance to me. Like the one thing that I think is the most endemic and the biggest endemic lie is this in American culture is this whole idea of meritocracy. It is one of the worst diseases that we've convinced ourselves of. The simple fact is when you look at the populations of things. Let's talk about our field. Most people in our field, there are some people who have some conservative leanings. We all know that. But by and large, most people who are in the arts consider themselves center left, somewhere on the progressive side. Most people, because those are the type of people you're around. We all work in this field. But look at how our field is constructed. Look how the fact that it's a bunch of resources, a bunch of wealth, and a bunch of stuff gathered up at the top, and there's nothing at the bottom, and everyone in the middle is constantly clawing over each other for the same grants, the same, foundation fellowships, the same stuff. But if you took a fraction of one of those board members' donations to the Met, that could fund a music education program for 15 years in the hood.
Systematic and systemic. That is
one. And I'm like, so put your money where your mouth is. I mean, I love seeing the Met in HD. I love all of those artists that have worked so hard to be there. But I'm sorry, put your money where your mouth is. If you want the communities to start to support this art form, you need to invest into those darn communities. You need to be getting these youth orchestras some money. You need to be getting these opera singers, these black, brown people who have trained at these schools and be paying them salaries so they can go into those schools and teach these children to appreciate how they sound and how they can sing. You need to be helping them work with those choir directors. You need to be doing all this stuff. I get it. Peter Gelb has a job. The development team has a job. But the people who are given that kind of money, they're still giving them that chump change, frankly. And they could be investing some of that money into the communities they say these big opera companies are supposed to serve. That would be justice.
And this is where I have to piggyback off of you. I have people that say, oh, we love black and brown. I know organizations that say, oh, we love black and brown people, and they're all for diversity. However, they're the same people that say all black people live in apartments with rats and roaches in each span. Mm-hmm. That's the same mentality that they have. Well, they'll take our talent. They'll take our talent, they'll take our gifts, they'll profit off of our gifts. But at the end of the day, when we're all dying and we're all going through, nothing is said, nothing is done, nothing has happened. it's a charity project that benefits them. But if it doesn't benefit them, they want no parts. That's my concern. That's a huge concern of mine.
It's a goddamn fashion choice.
They claim, I'm sorry?
It's a goddamn fashion choice.
Exactly.
It's like they're putting it on like a dress.
Exactly. And then it's like adopting a child from Asia. It's like that type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like, you know, I was going to say this, they claim they're not racist because they help and they benefit all these organizations. There was an opera, I forget it was this police brutality opera. I think it was called Blue. You know, and I don't know what if that particular opera company has done anything, you know, in response and solidarity in helping the community after.
Yes, I want to tell you that they do.
Okay.
This particular, because I'm here in the Maryland, DC area, the Kennedy Center, Washington National Opera, they have been doing and going into the minority communities with opera for years. I was one of their young artists. I was one of the ones that they would send in there, but they also built other, like a teaching artist type of thing outside of their young artist opera company, and will put it into those Black communities and brown communities, because that's a lot of what DC is made up of.
Right.
They would be teaching. So they do. And Francesca Zambello is the head there, but before she was there, they were doing it before her. And she has continued with that. But, you know, but yes, she is doing the work as well, and the Kennedy Center has been doing the work. So I can speak for them on their behalf about that, because I was one of the ones going in there for those children.
Thank you. You know, and see, that's important. The fact that people are standing up and speaking out and reaching out in times, you know, in times like this, but, you know, in general, times not like this, you know, when we're not thinking about the George Floyds and we're thinking about, you know, everything is rosy and sunshine and rainbows, you know, are you going into those communities and reaching out to those children and exposing these children to these art forms as someone that's not of this hue?
And I just want to add, like, you know, I've been listening to you guys and I totally agree, because I want us to make sure that, yes, even though we're venting some of our feelings and our issues about what's going on, we also have to help to provide some solutions, because it doesn't just help to vent and talk, because then they're like, well, what do we do? Because we have no idea what to do. Okay, so someone spoke about the Met. Cailin, I hope I'm saying your name right. Okay, Cailin. So let me just tell you, the Met has put a statement out, Peter Gelb has put a statement out stating hiring a chief diversity officer. They're going to add listening sessions, a senior management training, including people of brown and Black communities, and a paid internship programs for people of brown and Black communities. I also know that for these management companies, one of them that just comes to the top of my mind, Uzan's group, they're going to add an internship for brown and Black folks, you know, to teach them how to be managers. Because a lot of times it's out of, the thing is, we don't know how to get in, and they know the information, but they didn't know that we wanted to get in. I mean, I have to say it like that, you know, unfortunately, sometimes they just don't know, because they're around themselves all the time. And unfortunately, social media, the media itself, paints a picture of Black people being a bunch of criminals and brown people being a bunch of, in gangs, talking about, thank you, thugs, Latinos, and in those type of communities. And so a lot of times they don't know. And the only way that they're going to know is when we continue to have these kind of conversations, and also tell them that putting us on the administration staff, and being diverse doesn't mean just having one of us, one Black or brown person. You need to have multiple. And yes, having in an HR, you know, what you said, Rebecca, being that in your HR, you're saying, you know, you didn't feel comfortable because there was nobody that looked like you. Exactly. They need people in place that look like us. look like brown and Black people, because it is hard to talk to someone who doesn't look like you and doesn't understand your plight. I did go to a university, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. They made it a point. They had Black professors on the staff. It was fantastic. I also chose George Mason University for my undergrad because of Patricia Miller, who was my Black professor on the staff. And I chose that. I got a full ride to another institution that did not have anyone that looked like me. And I wasn't accustomed to that. And so because of that, my parents and I chose to go to a different school just so that I can feel safe. Let me just say that again. Sometimes you have to make those decisions. And it was a blessing that my parents could afford for me to go to a university and that I could pay. They paid for me to go to that university just so I can feel safe. So I didn't have to go to another university or who was giving me a full ride for talent. And I didn't necessarily feel safe in not only the university or the city that the university was in. So it's very important for us to give solutions. Start teaching your kids, start donating. Guys, they need to, if you don't want to be out there protesting with a sign, start sending your money to large national organizations, NAACP, Color of Change, ACLA. No, is it ACULA? Maybe it's the, that was right?
ACLU.
Thank you, ACLU. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say. But also to these smaller organizations, churches who have music ministries, prison ministries, who has ministries of food pantries. If you want to help folks, go to your local churches who are doing those works, that type of ministry. And for arts organizations, I had a company reach out to me just yesterday, asked me, Aundi, are there any Black arts organizations that I can donate to? And I said, yes. National Association of Negro Musicians. That's one of the ones that I definitely know. We also have Opera Noir. These companies, they're out there, and if they don't know where to go, it is our duty as Black musicians and brown musicians to tell them, yes, there are places for you to go, and you just don't know exactly where to search. Social media makes it super easy. So if you don't know a Black or brown person, and you're afraid to ask a Black or brown person, and you want to do something, go to social media, Facebook, Instagram. Most of these organizations are there, and put some keywords in there and things will pop up. And, that's how you can donate. That's how you can be a part of the conversation and how you can be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
So, Aundi, I love what you just said, but one of the things, I agree with you in part, but I'm tired of having to educate white people as to what they need to do to help us, because Google is a nifty tool. And, I go to Google University every day.
Every hour.
I get all kind of tutorials on various things. And I mean, this sounds weird, but I'm just going to say it. My best friend is a gay white boy. Okay, for 35 years, right? I don't like to say my best friend is because it comes out weird, but he just happens to be, right? And I never had to tell him what he needed to do to help me. You know what I mean? I never did, because he has the heart. And so I think when you have the heart, because a lot of people with resources can give money, that's not always even helping the cause either. It's just throwing money at things. People need to know the heart of the people, so that they can change in heart. Because there are some people who don't have no damn money who are white, who can't give a damn dime, but they can do other things, like some of the things that you mentioned, Aundi. And as well, I think the way I look at it like this, I think venting is healthy. I think Black folks have held in their feelings too long, and that's why we're so like, you know what I mean? That's part of the reason. I know me, I hold things in and I only share with people I trust. They get it all. My poor mama, right? They get it all. I pray for my mother every day for the burdens I place on her still. But at the end of the day, it's important for us to get these feelings out of us because it's killing us. Hypertension, stress, diabetes. We have strokes and all of these things because we hold all of this stuff inside of us. So I think it's important for us to express these things and put these things out. And one last point, there are a lot of, and someone spoke to this, there are a few Black folks who have been chosen to represent our race in the classical music industry, okay? And many of them are my friends, close friends, who used to come and hear me sing at Yale when they were babies, and I was still a grown-ass woman. And I like to say, and this is gonna sound weird too, I consider myself to be a reformed opera singer, and I'm gonna tell you what I mean by that. I don't like the industry. I don't like always feeling like I gotta prove myself over and over, and if I sing one bad
Yes, yes.
Listen, it's not about perfection. Black throats just assures you have about 1 million different Black hues. You got 1 million different Black timbres coming out of my throat. And one day I'm gonna write a book about the Black throat because because culturally we all sound different and people can't get hip to that. So they only choose a few of us who can fit inside of that European slice of what they want their classical music to sound like. Don't get me started, y'all.
Woo!
It's one of the reasons why many of us are rejected, because we don't fit the standard classical white sound. I'm just gonna put it out there. Our voices are very different. And I had to learn this. I was in the Houston Grand Opera studio singing The Countess, trying to sound like Carrie Tekanawa. Because I thought that was I know, Aundi, because I thought that was the standard. Somehow I thought, girl, listen. And so I had to start listening to Margaret Price or Leontine Price or Birgit Nilsson even sing Mozart to realize there are different ways of interpreting. So I want all of my Black brothers and sisters to know that that's one of the reasons why they only choose a few. And I want to say to the few who have been chosen, y'all been quiet until COVID-19.
Crickets.
I'm saying, I know you don't want to jeopardize your jobs. I understand.
Yep.
I get
Because
that.
we all unbooked, girl.
Listen, we were booked, busy, and blessed, but right now we just busy and blessed, right? We ain't booked, but
right.
And we have to count our blessings. But I think that more of the chosen Black folks have been too quiet, and now they're speaking out. And I'm proud of them because I'm coaching every Friday night a group of young Black opera singers who have not been chosen, okay? And it's been private talks. I'm not gonna put them out on Front Street, but every Friday night I meet with a group of Black young opera singers to give them a safe space to tell me what they feel. I'm double all their age because the chosen few have not been reaching out to them. They may be reaching out through these organizations, but sometimes we got to go to the places where the Black folks are without having that that sort of middle ground. I'm going to go and do outreach through LA Opera. That's cute. I'm going to go and do outreach through the Met. That's cute. I used to do it for the Houston Grand Opera. That's cute. But what about those kids who are not privy to those programs? So I'm working with sisters now privately who haven't been in any of these young artist programs, who feel like they're not good enough to dream to sing at the Met and various things like that. So I just want to say, the few chosen Black people, they have to find a way, because everybody can be activists in different ways. Find a way to speak your truth. Don't wait till something like this happen and then create all these forums and talk about racism in opera. I'm sorry.
Amen.
I know Jermaine's been waiting to go, but I just wanted to kind of respond to Aundi too. And I said, as someone, one of the reasons why I took the road that I did, I've been a conductor for 17 years. I had fest contracts in German opera houses before that. And I was sick and tired of waiting to be a part of somebody else's vision. And so I've spent more time on this side of choosing my singers, choosing repertoire, doing all that on my own. And I feel that the time This is the time where we should be saying, as the Black artists, like, yeah, I mean, I did the teaching artist thing, I did all that, but that's like swooping in and declaring a holiday once a month. That's not actually a company that's supposed to be advocating for the art, telling the very rich people that support it, if you really want this thing to be vibrant, if you really want those kids, white or Black, to be able to see themselves in this art form that you love, you actually have to invest in the communities. You can't just have a bunch of programs that are outreach. You actually have to do that work. Them doing those things is great. They've been doing it for 40 years, and we're still having conferences about why do people not see themselves in this field. And that's the difference. They need to be able to see, oh my God, like they should be talking to the kids in school. They should be seeing people like Tiffany, like you, Aundi, like Jermaine, like them, who didn't make it to the top, but can say, guess what? I support myself being an artist, and this is how I do it. And you don't have to be one of the ones that broke away to be able to do this for yourself too, if you want to. We understand your voices. We can tell you the schools to go to that have Black teachers. We can. And that the big companies should be supporting that work and not necessarily the own little things that they're comfortable with because they've been doing them for 30 years.
You know, their grant fodder that they have that hits
exactly
all the little check
all the check boxes. They need to change that. They need to be like, you know what? We're not going to just use our picked people. There are people we know out there that are doing this work, and we should be giving money to them. We shouldn't be saying, oh, apply for our grant. No, they should be giving money because then they're investing in the communities, and then the communities just might show up a little more for them. Just might.
I totally agree. But that's what systemic racism is.
Hey, yep.
Right. Racism is. That's what I'm trying to say, you guys. But you got to give them some solutions. And I know, Tiff,
right?
You don't want to talk to them no more about it. Okay, I get it, boo-boo. However, it's a lot of them out there, sugar, and they need a little help. And they need people like you to have and give them some help. I know you tired, but get untied, boo. Get untied, because they need your thought, they need your mind, and they need what you're going to give and offer them. So get untied. Okay, all of y'all hips on this panel, like I'm gonna
hip him.
Get untied, okay? We all in this together. Get untied, okay?
Amen, Tiff. Amen, Aundi.
So, y'all weren't ready. That's all I'm gonna really say about that. I'm Jermaine. I didn't feel the need to really introduce myself because I know all of these people. Dallas Opera Network. I am not new to you. I had a podcast with Michael and Will, and I have some bullet points to say. But every single other person on this panel has literally echoed my sentiments in some way, shape, form, or fashion, and the observational matter that Michael gave, because I know people who call themselves trailer white trash. We're gonna start with active listening. You need to be a willing vessel. We need you, like Tiff said, Aundi said, and some other says, please change your hearts. Because one thing that's shining on me right now physically to help illuminate my face is light. And to access light as an individual, as a human, it is exhausting. Light don't get sick of itself. Humans get sick of always having to be optimistic, loving, adoring, encouraging, strengthful, mighty, powerful, robust. We get tired, and I'm tired. But I'm not done with the fight because we got a lot to do. Another thing is, please understand our trauma. 400 years is what we're harping on because that's what majority of you know contextually or in the textbooks, but it goes far beyond that. If we want to talk about evolution, It goes farther than textbooks, before scripts were even written. And if you think about the origin of the human race, that's all you got is the origin. We are one. We come in different shades, but we are still humans. Black, white, Latinx, Asian, European descent, whatever. I got European in me as well. I got a little Asian too. You see Black, but ethnic backgrounds, it's a makeup, it's everything. Wow, I'm a little flustered because y'all got my spirit going.
Take it down, take it down.
Keep trying. I love what Aundi is harping on because I appreciate you trying, but I'm gonna also twist this into what Allison said. Let's not forget how she feels. I'm sick of the bullshit too. I'm sick and tired of the bull. And it hurts my heart, my soul, and my being. All of these beings in this Zoom, and I'm not yelling at you guys, please don't get it twisted. Dallas Hopper Network, we love you. But we're hurt. We're in pain, we're grieving, we're trying to make sense of this, and we're trying to be compassionate at the same time. Mind you, I didn't say we're trying to be mean-spirited. Black Lives Matter it's not originated from mean-spiritedness and from us wanting to terrorize your country, the country we built. Don't let me go there. I just need you to understand that we're dealing, we're coping, and we're trying to be as best as we can in the midst of so much trauma. And a lot of us, as this 26-year-old queer Black millennial from Virginia, P-Town, I am learning to cope. I'm healing. And that healing that Tiff was talking about is the healing that everyone should be doing. White, Black, Asian, Latinx, whatever you are. Because it's an evolution. It's not a one-stop process. It's not just overnight. And it doesn't just happen when these hashtags stop either. Evolution is meant to go on for eternity. You know that God love that some of y'all talk about? God didn't just stop at one person, didn't just stop at one day. Mm-hmm. This is a journey. And I think the last thing I'm going to keep saying is the centuries that we are talking about. Back to what I meant with trauma. This is century after century after century after century after century after century. And I said this in a post, and I am so thankful that I had so many people who were actively listening and reading my post. Those centuries that we only really talk about, the fourth one we're in, it's beyond that. So we have to have these conversations right now, and we have to keep doing the work. And for some, that might be a light load. Like some of your Black allies right now, it's a light load for us. We don't have to do it for your sake to appease you. We're doing it to keep us sane because we have to teach our children and our families and our generational, our just generations upon generations. We're doing our part. We just need everyone else to step up to the plate too. And it can't stop right now because there's so much more to do. And lastly, policy, 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 legislation, 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 legislation. It starts from the top. Get your act together. People at the top echelon, you do not scare me because I do not walk in fear of my life. If I'm not meant to work with you, and somebody already echoed this in this Zoom, if I'm not meant to work with you, I'm okay with that. If you have a problem with what's coming out of my mouth and you don't want me, I'm okay with that. Because I've been in survival mode since I came out the womb. So I'm gonna make it work. I'm gonna make it work one way or the other, like I've always been doing. I come from governor school. I come from Hart, which, you know, at one point was predominantly Jewish. I come from Portsmouth, Virginia. I come from a diverse background. So I have many people who get what we're all saying. Michael included. You see a lot of Black faces, but Michael is saying the same thing. We're all in this together. Let's make it work, but do not discredit what we are saying because you don't think that it's applicable yet. The time is coming, because what you see right now is what, and I'm so glad I stumbled on this piece of information just yesterday. What you're seeing right now happened with apartheid in Africa. You don't want it to get that far, so I just suggest changing your policy. Starting somewhere from the top. That is the root of everything, how we're legislated is policy. Demand certain things be in place. Make things changeable. Make things valid and substantial for the people that you're reaching out to and the people that you're hiring. We want to see real change this time. I won't settle for anything less as a 26-year-old millennial. Just saying.
Real change, not just kente cloth.
Real change. And on that note, boom, I'm on mute again.
Well, I thought that was absolutely beautiful, Jermaine. And I think all of us have said a lot of things that we're making great, wonderful points, and we're venting. And I hope you all feel like some load is coming off of your chest, because like it was mentioned, we do hold things in and we only speak about it in the community. So I appreciate Michael giving us the platform to converse and also share his experience so that we can come to understand him, because the understanding goes both ways, right? And as we look forward to like what changes, Jermaine, I'm so happy you mentioned policy, because as we've all mentioned, all of our white friends and allies have been reaching out to us, like, what can I do? What can I donate to? And even donating assumes that you have a level of access for, you know, funds that you can just give away. And if you do have access, please use your funds. But I think more than our funds, or just as equal, I won't say more than, but just as equal as our funds are our voices. And this is why we need our allies to speak out about the injustices. We need our allies to call their legislators and demand changes in the laws, because unfortunately the white voices have more power than the Black voices. And I'm loving seeing allies show up at the protests and blocking brothers and sisters from the police to protect them, because that is just another demonstration of how their lives on the front line matter more. So if you want to enact true allyship, I think Aundi had a wonderful list of organizations you can donate to. Our theaters, yes, Peter Gell put out the notice, and I forgot to mention that in what I was saying about our discussion. Those were our list of demands. Being artists in the Met that felt like we had no safe space, no people to go to, even if we needed to turn to AGMA, and hopefully the change, we'll see it. Who knows when the theaters will open. But even beyond our theaters, we need to get our school systems, Doc, like everything you were saying about the students that you, as a Black woman in a private school system, I did public school and I lasted 7 weeks. 1, I lost my voice in the classroom and had to quit. But 2, every day was a mental struggle. And I was teaching in an area of Baltimore called Dundalk. So if y'all know the Maryland area, Dundalk, Baltimore, I went to high school in Baltimore and I didn't even experience anything this bad. Until we can truly understand that the systemic racism is ingrained in every element of our lives, down to the arts, but beyond the arts, the education and access, the ripped up, old, out-of-date textbooks that these babies are reading and learning from, outdated information that's not even applicable. If a white person could sit here and be like, we all getting the same education and think that's the truth, that you've got another thing coming. And to my friends, I'm fortunate enough, I grew up in a suburb, but I went to school in an inner city area and have a lot of friends from the hood. And where do we think the hood comes from? Redlining, redistricting funds out of Black communities in order to relegate Black people into an area that has limited access to education and funds and policy and public programs. So it's very ingrained in our soil. Everything has a purpose. I often say everything is because of slavery. So it's just been one roll of the scroll. So as we move forward and think about what can we do, yes, the venting is therapeutic and it has its place, because hopefully people are opening their ears, their hearts, and their minds to receive the information that's being vented and to understand the information that's being given to them. And then go do your work. I'm gonna give you my bit. Go do the follow-up homework. Just like all of us had to go to school, you sat in class, and then you went home and you did your homework. It's the same thing. So I hope that we can figure out how to organize and band together for our individual communities, whether we all come together as artists and we really charge these theaters and these companies and these production houses to truly do the work behind the scenes that will then create the access for us to flourish, so that these young babies can see a show, to even have the thought to believe that that could be them. I would have never decided to sing opera if I hadn't watched VH1's Behind the Music and saw Tupac's Behind the Music. And lo and behold, in Tupac's episode, and we're talking about our rapper, in his episode, they went to his high school, Baltimore School for the Arts, and did a segment on how he had an arts high school education in theater and took ballet and everything in the school. And that made him a well-rounded actor and performer that informed him as a rapper, but also a thought leader of his time. And I turned to my mom and I was like, I want to go there. And happened to just be the last person to submit an application and then get an audition and then get in. And I thought I was about to be singing Crazy in Love like Beyonce. And they were like, oh no, ma'am, here's that 24 Italian arias. Here's that, the best of German Lieder. You better get into this Robert Schumann, okay? And that changed my life.
You better enjoy it, okay?
And you're gonna enjoy it. And my first voice teacher, Robert Cantrell, who's also affiliated with Washington National Opera, exposed me to Leontine and Kathleen and Simi Joe and Ruth Ann Swinson and Renee Fleming, and diversified my ear to where on my playlist you might hear Gucci Mane and Glitter and Be Gay back to back. Who knows? Okay. So, but I'm fortunate to have that experience. How are we going to make everyone else have that experience? And that's where we move forward. And it has to be a collaborative effort. It can't just be us trying to do it by ourselves, until we get to the point where there is true justice, true equality, where everyone's lives do matter. I can't wait for the day where all lives matter. I'll rejoice.
You know, Rebecca, like you just touched on so many points. You know, for me, I appreciate this talk so much, just to see so many beautiful African-American musicians coming together, you know, to talk about the things that are important to us. You know, me personally, one of the biggest reasons I stopped singing was because of competitions, you know, everything is a competition. I was it hurts me, you know, sometimes to even compete against, you know, other people my age, people older than me and stuff like that, you know, because it creates a divide, you know, whether we know it or not, you know, yeah, it's cool to say oh yeah, we're cool behind the stage, you know, but, you know, behind the scenes we're fine. But, you know, when competition time comes around, you know, it's a whole nother story. And it's just I really do appreciate just having this conversation with other beautiful African-American women and men who understand this field and who really do understand that we do need each other. You know, I wish I would have seen stuff like this when I was a kid, you know, I wish I saw so many beautiful Black people coming together, you know, musicians, you know, sharing their experiences, you know, like Rebecca said, I didn't see Leontine Price on TV when I was a kid. The only reason why I got into opera is because my aunt sang in church, you know, and she sang, you know, a different way than the other people in church, you know, and I was oh, I thought that was just my aunt's voice, you know, but I don't know, one other thing I wanted to touch on, you know, it's just, we're not just fighting racism, it's the term supremacy, you know, just supremacy in general, just thinking that people are better than others in any way, shape, or form, and that has to stop. You know, like that has really hurt so many people just by thinking that you deserve more, that you're better. You know, we talked about our school systems, you know, like I grew up in PG County, like we had RIP books, you know, we had, you know, like we did not have fancy anything ever. I did public schools my whole entire life, you know, but I am grateful that I had Black teachers. You know, that was the only time in my life that I had Black teachers was at Prince George's County, you know, and it made a difference, you know, and I hope that, you know, just in the future, like one of my goals is really, is just to teach, not in any kind of conservatory, any type of anything, you know, but just to share, you know, what I've gained. You know, I had the opportunity to study with these people, you know, and a lot of people can't afford that. I was only able to go to the school that I went to because of my community. They supported me, you know, like there were no other Black singers. I was made fun of at my school because I sang opera, because people thought, you know, people called me white. They were like, oh yeah, you're the Black white girl because you sing opera, you know, and it's just like, I did not like have that support from my friends in school, you know, but the older people in my community, they really like pulled together because there weren't a lot of people like me where I come from, you know? So it's just like, the most important thing I think we can do, like, yes, we sing and do all this other stuff, but we like just giving it all back, you know, like we have to, you know, especially knowing what we know, you know, just giving that back, just because like, I don't know, I feel like this has opened so many people's eyes just to realize how many lies that we were fed as children, you know, like at least I know I can speak that for myself, you know, that I was fed so many things that were wrong. You know, I was just talking to my two friends the other day about even the map of the United States that they show us in school. Like it shows, you know, like everything is all equal, you know, like all the, you know, the continents, they're, you know, like some are a little bit bigger than others, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, that's not how it is in real life. You know, they've called us minorities for a long, long time. But if you look at the geography of the world, we are not the minority. You know,
say that.
You know, we are not. You know, and it's just like we're fed so many lies. You know, so it's just like it is our responsibility. Like Aundi said, like yes, we have to teach our children. You know, I don't have like biological children right now, but I have two kids that I love so much that live with me, you know, and I know that it is my duty to be as honest and as truthful as I can possibly be and be the best person that I can possibly be, you know, for them, you know, and for the rest of the kids that are looking at us, you know, because whether or not we think about it, the kids, the younger generation, they are looking at us, you know, like it's just, it is, you know, so it's just like we have the responsibility just to educate ourselves and to be the best people we can be so that we can help them. You know, so that's all I'd say.
My final comments for this talk. I want to go back to George Floyd and just say that I couldn't bring myself to watch that video, but I only saw a couple of seconds of it. I couldn't watch the rest of it. But I just want to say that during my processing of this, that I want to share with you guys what I think you already know, that God would choose an ordinary, and I'm going to try to say it without crying, that God would choose an ordinary man. He had no titles. He didn't have no fancy degrees. He didn't have a fancy ass job. He was just a brother, like around the way brother. Like I know that dude. I got cousins like that dude, that most people would see outside of my community would see him as a threat. My brother is like that. I'm to the point where I call my brother and was like, yo, dude, just be quiet right now. Cause you know, I'm scared for my brother's life because he's been protesting in Philadelphia. But I just want to say that the story and the moral of what we should get out of all of this, in particular when it comes to George Floyd, is that he was ordinary, and there are millions of ordinary brothers like that God took, and now he's a damn martyr. His name is more relevant than any person on this planet right now, worldwide. His name is more relevant than anybody alive today. And he didn't know that day when he woke up that he was going to be chosen to be a martyr for us. And if we let that brother die the way he did in vain, then shame on all of us. And certainly shame on Black folks if we don't use that example as the strength we have, and how God took that ordinary brother, public lynching, and now he has been elevated into a martyr, and he's going to change the course of this world. I always say God got jokes, because no human being alive could construct this. You know what I mean? We're not that clever as human beings. You understand? This is why I believe in God, because we don't have the capacity to do this kind of magic. Take the most horrible situation and to convert that into some energy that is got white people out there saying Black Lives Matter. Holy smokes. I'm like, God got jokes for real. I mean, so that is the energy that I'm taking from that horrible event, that no matter who you are, where you're from, and where you were born, or how much money or whatever you have, your life has meaning, whether somebody else gives you that, certifies that. But that brother was certified by Yahweh, God, Jehovah, the bright and morning star. He was certified by him, not by us.
Amen.
So I ride with that to the day I die. I ride with that. He is a martyr, and he was a nobody in the eyes of that man who snuffed him out in his cavalier smile, as if he was taking a selfie. That's sick. But you know, God is this energy of God, whatever name you give it, that energy is so powerful that what the enemy meant for evil,
yes,
God turned that thing around, and he was like, I'm gonna liberate my people through this man's public lynching. Holy smokes. And that's why my tears are more tears of joy than anguish, as they were in the beginning. Because I know that there is an energy that is more powerful than racism. And that's why Black folks haven't been kept back.
Tiffany.
We're survivors. You understand? So that's why I said I'm good. I've always felt this way. It's just, I just feel like now I've been forced to sit still in it and stew in it a bit and figure out how I'm going to use it and to generate good work. So I wrote a one-woman show last year. It's called From the Hood to the Ivy League. And I streamed it live on Facebook last week. And I'm so grateful that I have this video to repurpose, because now y'all got to get into this. We're going to be hired through the computer.
Yep.
So y'all better get y'all some video and repurpose that shit, because I'm selling this damn thing. I'm about to do a cyber performance of my one-woman show next month in Hartford at the Asylum Hill Church.
My church.
Your church. They're hiring me to bring my show there. And so my 4-piece jazz band is going to be there, and it's going to be me, and they're going to stream us out. And they're paying me a real fee for this, my intellectual property. So opera singers, don't get stuck just thinking about your high notes. Do that. But do realize that what makes us unique is what makes us unique. Do your own shit, write your own shit, be the boss of your own shit, be the shit so that you can serve the shit. And stop waiting for people to save us from our tribe. I have a tribe of white folks that if I don't have another white person on my side, I don't even need it. I mean, I got a tribe of white people who ride or die for me, and they always have. They have their issues, and we've talked about that. So I have my tribe of people. So I don't need a whole bunch of people inboxing me, telling me that they feel bad and what they need to do. You know, where do I need to send the money? Well, I can give you my Cash App. Because I am the person in need that you're trying to get to. Don't bypass me by telling me where to send it. Necessary Diva at Cash App. So, because I got a $300,000 student loan debt. Okay? And 5 degrees. So at the end of the day, I am the special project. You understand? So I'm just keeping it real with y'all. That's the energy that I'm taking from that horrible event. Is that I'm ordinary. I was born in the hood. I used to hear gunshots every night going to bed, and it didn't even faze me. You understand? That's how conditioned I was. So at the end of the day, I'm grateful and I'm blessed, but I can't get comfortable in my blessings and be like, yo, I got mine, so now you got to get yours. Oh, I'm singing at the Met and all over the world, so now I don't need to go back and pick some folks up. No, because right now we're all on the same level.
Say that.
We're all starting, everybody is all, and when things are reconfigured, they're not going to be the same. So I
Speak on it.
All the young folks on here in their 20s, Allison, sis, Nia, the young folks on here, brother Raiquan, yo, figure out how you're going to repackage yourself and be multi-purposeful, multi-dimensional, multimedia. I learned iMovie during Rona. I learned a garage band during Rona. I got me a compressed mic and a dynamic mic. I got me a damn interface. And I got me a USB.
Come on here. We need to collab.
And I know how to plug all that shit up. So I need you guys to understand, don't wait for people to apologize to you and make things right. Let them do that. But in the interim, repackage yourself. If you don't have a domain, get a damn domain. Give it a name and start building. If you don't have a website, get a website. If you need a website, call me. I'll build one for you for $1.99. Because we need to be able to create our own, because in most cases, I'm telling you how I got my opportunities now with my video. People need to see that you have something to sell. They need to see that you have something to sell. Now, right now, honey, we are the shit right now. So y'all, we hashtag we the shit black people right now. So take full advantage of the help that white people want to give us, but create something that you can sell in through the cyber world, that you can stream on Facebook, that you can sell to churches and things like that, and make your coins. So that's, I'm sorry I'm going on so long. Oh my God. But
can I add something to that?
Thank you.
Can I add something to that and say that you know, I'm a good resource for that as well, because I'm scouting, you know, for 3 different organizations looking for digital content. So if you guys have digital content, and I don't mean just like art, like I mean stuff that's like innovative, not just arias, but like, you know, full operas, new operas, digital operas that use the media and the screens as the actual stage. You're writing for that medium as opposed to writing for another medium and trying to jam it into this one. If you have ideas like that, talk to me. I have people I can pass them along to. I'm not going to take a cut. I'm just a facilitator. I'm just getting people the ideas. So if you have them, let me know. And I want to tag on to that and ask a question about opera companies that decide, hey, we want to do an opera about the Black experience. And like, from my perspective, when I look at the repertoire that's chosen and the stories that are picked every single time, it always seems to be like a snuff film, like the worst, like the most torturous things that happened. You know, it's terrible stories. I mean, incredible, inspiring stories about triumphing over adversity and all these things. But where are the stories where it's not Black suffering that is the story, the entire narrative of the story? And is that something we should?
That's a whole episode on its own.
Yeah.
Right. That's a whole.
I mean, definitely. I mean, like, I definitely have benefited from doing one of those, I guess, like, quote unquote snuff operas where, you know, it was heavy. It was hard to do, you know. I mean, Mike and I actually talked about the opera when I saw you in New York on the train. And I'm very proud of that work. But I mean, I've, you know, as I've been watching and people have been like naming like different like Black operas, I'm like, wow, like these are all so depressing. Like, where is the Black girl joy? Where is the Black boy joy in these operas? Like, why aren't these companies finding different ways? And that's why, you know, a lot of, obviously, like, the topic of Porgy and Bess has come up in a lot of these panels. And in my personal opinion, I'm not trying to speak for anyone, I think people when I say people, I mean, because most likely when you come to the opera, because it's so expensive, it's white people. I've never done a boarding fest where there have been empty seats ever. But white people I think they like to see Black people in this oppressed way. I think they like to see them in this way that is not as savory as a, Trovatore or a Elixir of Love or a Magic Flute. Hence why I think there weren't a lot of Black tenor leads for so long, because they didn't like seeing Black men in the love interest with a white woman. And I think, Mike, I'm glad you brought that up on this sort of forum, that I hope that, as people are moving forward, like when they start wanting to commission new works, that yes, while there is a lot of obviously angst and hardship in the Black experience, there is a lot of joy, and there is a lot of wonderful stories in which you can tell to have Black people and not this such oppressed, I'm a slave, I'm afraid for my life, I'm afraid to let my son go out into the street, I grew up in this small town and, so-and-so did this to me. So that's, definitely my charge to companies, to portray people, again, equality and equity. These are a lot of hot topic button words that, I've been hearing in a lot of these panels to show us in happier, better lives, because we're not these downtrodden people. Like, you like to see us when we do the gospel number. Like, church, we love, that is an aspect of our life when we are happy and we are joyous. And also, there's also, there are times when we're sad in church, but, there is so much joy in the Black experience that I wish was portrayed more in operas.
I was going to say, just to kind of dovetail off of what Adam says, and this will probably be the last thing that I add, because I want to hear what everyone else says, that one thing is that would there is a lot of joy, like when you talk about gospel music and you talk about there are so many experiences of joy, but one of the reasons why, I'm just thinking the Black story, the African American story, is one of overcoming. Telling that whole story is by making people bear witness to the immense amount of suffering that we have experienced as a people, and then how people have overcome that. Now, that's not to say that there are great Black authors. I'm talking about people not just from the Harlem Renaissance, but who actually, some of them, there's some people now who they call Afrofuturists, right? Who talk about, that have written stories that are fantasy, because it's not based in the reality that we experience, that are fantasy, that give this other type, this what could be Black experience. When I think about what a great example of the possibility there is that series on Netflix, Hollywood, right? We all know people criticize that because, it wasn't really real. No, it wasn't meant to be real. There was no studio where the Jewish woman took over the studio and made all this other stuff. But the idea, the premise is, what would have happened if they made those choices? What would have happened if there was a Black female lead? We know it's not the truth of the matter, but what if, right? And the other side of that, the other flip side of that, and this is, I wanted to speak to what Allison was talking about competitions and about all of that, is that one of the things that has roiled me so hard, and that I think is one of the greatest solutions, is that, it's not just about looking for someone to give you the space to do what it is you do. But one of the things that has happened, and thank God for you, Tiffany, for speaking about this, is about the fact that we as a people, and it's not just Black people, it's everyone, we as a people have constantly, as an American people, have constantly been fed this thing that someone has to rubber stamp our excellence. Someone has to say, oh yeah, we see you as this blah, 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 and so now we're going to give you the space to prove that you are. And that's really what competition is about. When you get to a certain level in this industry, or when you get to a certain level in your study, everybody in the room is talented. Everyone is. Everyone has done their Vakai, their Marchese. Some of them haven't, and they just got it like that, and we hate them because they didn't have to put it together. You know, some people have, I'm sorry, everyone has done that. And yet everyone's going for this brass ringing competition. Why? Because they've been fed the lie that if they win that competition, that's going to guarantee them that spot at the top. And the solution that I advocate is get rid of the top. Because the top is the source of the lie. If you have more people if you have more people able to take and claim their excellence and not sing at that top house, and that's what that's what social media does. If you can sit there and say, I'm going to sing a recital in my living room that you can hold up next to somebody who just sang this, and it is just as good, if not better, there is no reason why the people who didn't hire you to sing that, I'm going to have to go, ahama. You see what I'm saying? You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait to win that competition. That is the blessing of this social media thing. That is the blessing of Zoom. Really, that is the blessing of COVID. There have been so many people who have gone out there and have started to just stream stuff from their house. I mean, I sit there, I'm looking like things. I mean, I'm talk about being inspired. I think about, what's his name? Aaron Crouch just graduated from Curtis right now. He's doing his what the fuck things. And I'm like, you know how many times I've sang Delilah's aria? How many times I've sang Abel Lee in the shower? Carabino. And I'm like, and he is slaying him. And I'm like, you better go ahead. You better go ahead and just sing whatever you want and put it on YouTube. That is what I'm talking about. That is like, look, you know, we have the time, we have the space now, and we don't know when theaters are going to open. We don't know when we're going to be able to get orchestras together. But you know what? All of us have people who, like, I know for myself, I mean, I'm blessed. I've hauled this piano around for a long time. I'll play it. But I know people who can play it better than me. And I'm going to be like, hey, I'm going to sit here and be like, doo-doo-doo. I'm going to sing some vault for you. How about that? You know what I mean? Because you don't have to wait. We don't have to wait any longer for someone to say you're good enough to be on our artist series. You don't have to wait any longer for someone to say you have to sing your 5 arias for us to even think about you. You can sing every damn role you know right now and make the world hear you. And that's the big difference. And the more we stop looking for the power concentrated at the top to validate our talent, and the more we back each other up, and even when they open the theaters, we're like, look, you know what? I'm willing to say no to that contract that you give because I'm doing something with my brother and sister over here. See, those choices will make the difference. The minute they can't get a single black singer that they want to pump up on their stage because we'd rather do it with our own or with actual companies that believe in us and our talent, that'll teach them. And so, my heart is with everyone. I know I'm trying to make moves to help build things, even with my white allies, to be like, look, let's stop waiting. Let's stop waiting. Let's just stop waiting. And let's start doing it for ourselves. Because guess what? Some of us are blessed. Tiffany, myself, we've been at this hard. I'm staring down the barrel of 40. I've been singing for 20 years. And I'm just like, look. I'm like, I have a full-time teaching job that pays my bills. I would love to make a little more bread, but I don't have to. You know what? If I have an oratorio, and Jermaine knows this because he's seen me do it. If I have an oratorio that I'm doing with one of my predominantly white choirs in New England, you best believe I'm asking some young black singers to sing it. Because at the end of the day, I'm the conductor, and I'm black. And they're not going to tell me I can't hire who I want. So you have to, it's just about taking the reins and saying, this art is mine. And that's why I'll leave it.
That's real. What Dr. Jackson and Cailin said, like, build your own platform. So last year when I graduated, I told people about the story about my dad, and I put it on LinkedIn. And they got 2.3 million views on LinkedIn.
Yes, he did.
Attack where the white people got, that's their Facebook. You get what I'm saying? I mean, seriously, that's their Facebook, LinkedIn. You know what I'm saying? And I just put it up there as like a testimony. But like, we all got phones. Post your own videos. Like, so you don't need, I just bought a camera just to buy a camera because I want to do a vlog. But like, we all got phones. We don't have to spend that much money to get the stuff out there. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Dr. Jackson and Cailin, for saying that.
Y'all are talking right now. Y'all been talking for 3 hours. Come on, people. Sorry, Dallas Opera Network. Don. Sorry, Don. I'm
done. Listen, we'll break this up into 2 or 3, and if we need to come back and have another discussion, we can do that. And look, they gave me the microphone, but I pick what goes on this show, so I could do this for the next 4 weeks if I wanted to. So this, we can talk as long as we want to. I'll break this up into a few episodes, and we'll make sure that, if this is a conversation we need to have once a month, we'll have it once a month. But, seriously, this microphone doesn't belong to me. That's why the show is called The Quick with Michael Mays. I'm here to elevate and amplify the voices that I think need to be elevated and amplified in our business. And these voices right here, I haven't heard these voices. But I want to hear more from these voices. Because I've heard the same voices all the time saying the same fucking things. But what I'm hearing in this room is novel and interesting and compelling and thought-provoking. And so I would love to keep this conversation going. If you guys are, I know we've been going for 3 hours. It's a long time. We can stop now and continue it later. I would love to. Make it happen.
I would love to as well, Michael, and I would love to hear more about your journey and awakening from where you came from, because like I said before, it's truly going to be a voice like yours that will probably open the hearts and minds, and then we can be here and be the vessels to share our experiences. But I think your experience is just as valid, and I want to receive that as well so that I can be better equipped to understand who I'm talking to when I go out and have talks and dialogue and conversation. If we all have the same end game, we got to be on the same page.
Look, that's the reason why, everybody was always, you talk about owning your own identity, telling your own story, doing what's about, I have taken so much from this conversation that is personally enriching to me and ratifying of some of my experiences. People, when I started going through my transition, I stopped wearing the suits and the ties and stuff and the long hair and the goatee, all that stuff. I stopped doing that. I wore cowboy boots. I wore blazers and jeans, and that's wherever I look like Howdy Doody on acid. But now I disarm people. Because I go back home to cut and shoot, and I go into a store, and they think I'm one of them. I'm an undercover hippie. And so they say stuff to me that they used to say to me before, but now they're not saying it to Republican white supremacists, the product of white supremacists from a childhood, Michael Mays. They're saying it to somebody who's worked to get that out of their life. And I will not hesitate to give them one of those, not physically, of course, but a metaphorical backslap, because I can get them when they're not looking. They don't even know. They don't even know what to expect it, So I love the idea of being, and here's another point I wanted to make before we go on, is that when you are part of a community that's been traumatized for 400 years, COVID ain't nothing but a thing, man.
Say that.
Yup. Yup.
When I talk to I've done a lot of operas about combat-induced PTSD, and my consultant and now really good friend Sean Davis, who's a Purple Heart recipient, whose best friend was killed in Iraq. We watched it happen in his hand. He was the artist. Terrible. But he said, like, I had a hard time with PTSD. My friends had a hard time with PTSD. Do you know who didn't? People from the inner city. Because they're used to trauma. It doesn't shock them to hear gunshots going off in an urban area. It doesn't shock them to see these horrible sights, because for them, it was their friends and family that was happening to every fucking day. They understood what it's like to be oppressed by an occupying force. They get it. So, you know, I just wanted to, I think that's something we can't, that's one gateway into the white psyche, because they have limitless compassion for veterans. Limitless. Knows no bounds. Knows no bounds. But for some reason, when they turn to the person sitting next to them that's a different color, they lack the ability to show that compassion, that understanding, and that perspective.
Yeah. All right, and I just want to say I have to get off of here just because it's a special day. But I just wanted to leave you with one more thing, and that is literally like just everyone on this call, and I really wish, I mean, some of our other artists that I really love who were doing really well for themselves before COVID-19. I just want to say, don't let people off the hook. Don't let the next Black opera or Black commission be the next Porgy and Bess. Because I'm sorry, I just see, as much as I would love to see more Black stories told and more Black composers and singers get their due, I still think that's like almost like colonializing again. You know, if the only time they're going to bring Black people to that stage, or Black people in that orchestra pit, or a Black conductor, and sometimes they don't even do that with Porgy, thank you very much, or Black conductor into that pit, is when they're trying to tell another Black story, then they still haven't done the work. You know, one of the most beautiful things, and I love Porgy and Bess too, but one of the most beautiful things I actually saw earlier this year was an almost predominantly Black Nozze di Figaro that was done. You know, and I was just like, you know, was it San Francisco Opera who did it?
Yeah,
San Francisco Opera.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, like, you know, and I'm just like, hello, could you imagine? You know, I mean, that you know, being able to sit there and be like, okay, this isn't, we're gonna, I mean, and granted, yes, sure, they were in period garb or whatever, but that is the suspension of disbelief. That is the ability to see the nobility in others that we should be promoting on the stage. You understand what I'm saying? And so, you know, yes, we should of course be telling them to expand the canon and get Margaret Bond's music performed, and Florence Price's music performed, and William Grant Still's music performed, and H. Leslie Adams' music performed, and Adolphus Hailstorm. All those, they're great and they're geniuses, but we should not let them just do that and say, oh, well, we're going to get the Black people to do the Black thing. No.
No.
And we shouldn't let them off the hook for that. We'd be like, look, yeah, you can program them, but don't program them if you're not going to put some people in, if you're not going to, and I'm not talking about Aida either, because that's another one. If you're not going to, like, I'm sorry, if you're not going to get a Black Electra going on, because we know there are people who can sing that. If you're not going to have, if you don't need to have Simon Estes now to do a Black Flying Dutchman. You could populate that whole Wagnerian stage with a bunch of hollering Black people, okay?
Amen.
You can do it because they are there, and
Where's
some
that
of them.
ring? I want to see that ring.
And some of them, truth be told, some of them literally are Black and are on the other side of the Atlantic, because that's where they actually let them do the stuff that their voices do. Bring them back. I think it's a darn shame. I mean, I don't know her from Jump, but I think it's a darn shame that a freaking Kamazangarin had to sing Just Lily in Porgy. She should be Frika in Valkyrie, like she's been in almost God knows how many German opera houses. You understand what I'm saying? Let's hold them accountable. I love you all. Mwah. I'll see you later.
You're fabulous.
off that point that Cailin was saying, like, you know, it's just so, you know, for Black singers, you're like, well, you know, we want the work because we know it is sometimes far and few in between. And I'm gonna say, like, I've been very blessed in my career. I'm like very happy, or happy enough. But you know, it's, and then I know I was listening to another panel yesterday, you know, and some singers, you know, feel the need that if, you know, someone says, hey, we want you to do Porgy, you know, being like, okay, I'll do your Porgy, but I need something in another season, and demanding that and having that as a part of, and it's hard because, you know, with, I mean, maybe it's not a conscious thing. I hope it's not. But I think there is this thing where, like, if you're not going to do it, I know someone else is. And I think that is the thing with Porgy is like, oh, like, okay, well, if you're not going to do it, we can find someone else. Because, again, you know, they know we're sitting at home, twiddling our thumbs, waiting for that call. And it's like, well, you knew my number for Porgy. I'm taking this from another colleague, Kenny Overton. Like, you knew my number when you wanted me for Porgy. So where you forgot my number for the rest of your seasons? Or like, as in, also like what Cailin was saying, it's something, you know, I've been thinking about, like, we can't let them off the hook when it comes to these new works, when it comes to, you know, when they're like, okay, well, we're going to do this opera that's going to have a predominantly all-black cast. And it's like, okay, that's great. That's a step. But then when I come back the next season and I see an all-white Bohème and an all-white this and an all-white that, it's like, and that's what I said earlier, I'm going to be on and looking at companies in the upcoming years just to see, because it's like, if you're just going to go back to the old same stuff, I'm going to have to reevaluate if I want to be in this business. Because it's like, if you're not going to value me or other people like me out in this business, then maybe it's not something that I should be doing. And I love singing. Singing is what I've been doing since I was, like, professional since I was 15 years old. It's my bread and butter. It's what I love to do. But I think, you know, I hope these companies are really taking what we have to say to heart, because it can't go back to what it was before. It truly can't. Because I weep for singers even who are older than me that didn't even get their shot, who didn't get their opportunities, who were out on those streets hustling, doing what, you know, as we all said, what we felt like we were supposed to do. And, you know, something that has always rung in my mind, Mike, I don't know if you remember this, when I was at Central City and we were doing Tosca and we had that panel, and, you know, everyone was saying, like, the traditional things, like, you know, like, write your notes to their, you know, your music staff, and, you know, be prepared, and, like, all, like, the traditional, like, things. And Mike, he was just kind of sitting in the corner. He was like, you know, that's all great, but talent at the end of the day is what's going to get you in the door. And I think what's so frustrating for a lot of people is we know that we're talented, and we see our colleagues passing us by, moving on, and generally they're our white colleagues. And it's disheartening. And I think sometimes we get raps as being bitter and being angry. It's like, maybe I am a little bitter because I was in the same theory class as you, and you couldn't tell an eighth note from a quarter note. Or I was in the same German class as you, and you didn't know a schwa from an open E, and you're singing all over the place. And it's because, you know, for whatever reasons. And it does become a little disheartening when you've done the work, you've done what you've needed to do in order to have literally the exact same thing as your colleagues, and you don't get it. I mean, you know, if my, you know, white colleagues are listening, like, that's not a dig at you by any means. It's, you know, again, the supremacy, the hierarchy, all of these other things that we have to deal with that, you know, maybe aren't always said, but, you know, we feel it, we know it, we see it. So, yeah.
I wanted to go back to something that Michael was saying. Just, I don't know. I think one of the last things you said, Michael, was that, you know, we'll treat our veterans, you know, a certain way, but then we look at the person next to us, you know, if they're of a different color, then it's like a different story. You know, for me, I wanted to take, this isn't about singing really, but I just wanted to take the time to look at the person in between. You know, what you just said, our Black veterans, you know, like I'm from DC, I'm from Maryland, but I went to Suitland, so it's like right on the Maryland DC line. The there are so many homeless Black veterans in DC that it just breaks my heart, you know, and they are of, you know, older generation, you know, it's my parents' age, you know, who are out here on the streets. And it's just like, you guys say that you know, like you care about this country and that you love this country, you do everything for your veterans. And it's just like, show us. You know, like, show us. We keep saying that Black Lives Matter, and it's like, we're not saying it for no reason. It's just like, because they don't matter to you, you know, because if they did, like Dr. was saying, like Dr. Tiffany was saying, you know, like just all of the drug addicts that ended up in jail are dead, you know, but then their white colleagues have these nice little jobs, you know, are little CEOs, you know. It's just like, to even think about just the prison system today in general, there is absolutely no reason that if African Americans only make up such a small percent of our country's, you know, our country's demographic, we make up a small percent, about, I don't want to get it wrong, but about in like the 20s or 30s, but yet it is over about 50% of us in prison. Like,
Allison, 13 actually. I heard 13% the other day, which is even worse.
13% of our country's population, and yet we're filling our jails.
And in prisons like Angola prison in New Orleans or in Louisiana, which was a former plantation, and which employs prison labor to supply the grounds. I mean, what the fuck? They just changed the name. You know?
That's been done all over. It's been done everywhere. You just same shit, just different name. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like, it's, yeah, people are like, oh, racism happened a long time ago. Like, wait, you know, like
20 minutes ago.
Yeah, what? You know, just because you put paint on a dog, that don't mean it's not a dog still. You know, it's just like, we have to be real with ourselves, you know, and it's just like, and, you know, like people were talking about, like, it's traumatic. You know, it's traumatic not just seeing us die at the hands of police, but it's traumatic to see us hauled off in jail. You know, like one of the worst things that happened to me was just seeing my cousin go to, like, hauled off to jail, you know, and he was wrongfully convicted and he was released, you know, years later, but still, like, that took years of his life, you know, like and it does something to the family, it does something to the person, you know, and it's just like, and we have to hold these people accountable, you know. I don't know if y'all saw the video of the New York City police chief the other day, you know, talking about, you know, how their shield still shines and everything like that, you know, and I have to, like, I don't know, it's just like, I have to make it known. It's just like, I understand where he's coming from. However, that does not change the fact that New York State is still where Eric Gardner died. You know, like, and what did he say before he died? He said, I can't breathe. You know, it's just like, those are the same words that George said. You know, it's just like, yeah, you can tell us all you want that not all cops are bad or not this or not that. I don't want to hear it. I don't. You know, it's just like, show me that not all cops are bad, you know, like stop killing us. And then maybe I'll believe you, you know, stop planting evidence and throwing us in jail, you know, and then maybe I'll believe you, you know. It's just, I'm just tired of the talk, you know, like, yeah, like legislation needs to change or anything and everything, you know. It's just like, it's so much work that needs to be done, you know, and, you know, we have to be in it for the long haul, you know, like we just have to be, you know, like just knowing that we probably will never see the day, you know, we might not, you know, see the day when things actually become equal or become fair, you know, for our people. But that doesn't mean that we can't still fight for that, you know, just always having that in mind, you know, like that is the thing, you know. And it's hard to stay encouraged sometimes, at least for me. I found that is very hard to stay encouraged when it just feels like everything you do, it doesn't matter because they're still going to kill us anyways. You know, it's just like, you know, it's just like, I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate this panel, you know, we just because of the support, you know, and just to keep moving us forward to the goal, you know, which is really just we just want to be alive, you know, we just want to be alive and we just want to be respected. That is it. We're not asking for much, I don't think, you know.
But
I stand in full solidarity with you, Allison. It's painful. It really is. And I think Adam was touching on this about joy. You know, there are moments, I mean, and unless you're living like a very destitute life, there are moments where you're overcome with a lot of happiness and joy and I don't know, celebration for the things that we accomplish in our life. But then it's that trauma that you have to deal with in order to heal. And I think for a long time, particularly what you said, the lack of respect, but it's also the lack of accountability to what we have to go through in order to be civil and coexist with the sins of our allies past. No one living was a slave owner, but unfortunately we have not dealt with that system, the system that has oppressed and has, you know, condoned racism and bigotry and misogyny and prejudice and discrimination. I mean, it's trendy right now to say racist, but let's talk about the other words, the biases, the prejudice, the discrimination, the lack of opportunity, the overhaul, like Rebecca said earlier, the redlining. Like, are we gonna talk about that? When you give people good things to look forward to and to the infrastructure that is substantial and sustainative, what do you think is gonna happen? We're not gonna wanna walk around. It's just like someone said this earlier. The root of, I think, majority of Black people is gratitude and appreciation, because that's what we're taught. So we don't walk around with the idea of looting. I mean, think about that. We don't want to be tearing down our brother's business, but for so long, we've been overhauled and we've been publicly lynched, silently lynched. You've been looting Black people. Let's just be real about it. And it's gotta stop. And I'm so sick of my people having to say it's gotta stop. We all know it should stop. Because, I mean, anyone that wants this, your karma's coming, whether you believe it or not, because there's a lot of people who believe in God and there's a lot of people who believe in karma. It's coming. Mark my words. That is one thing I am very sure about, just like that omnipotent power that Tiffany was talking about. I'm sure that energy, that magic, it's happened to a lot of us in our lives, and some put it on a stamp of religion, and some people call it what they want. But it's gotta start with the people at the top. If you don't change the policy, we are coming to dismantle it. We, the people. That's the one thing the Constitution got a lot of things right. But, I mean, just thinking of the origin of the Constitution, we, the people, we're gonna have our just due, our justice, one way or the other. And people at the top who are listening to this, there's a lot of fervor, there's a lot of intensity, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of grievancing and grief that we're dealing with. There's a lot of venting happening. But please know, this is all from a place, well, no, I can't speak for everyone. For me, it's all from a place of love and high emotional intensity. So just hear us. Let's actually make tangible change, if anything. Tangibility is what we need right now.
You know, I want to piggyback off of that really quick, and this is going to be my final words. You know, we live in a world where there's the one present thing in life is love. Love is the reason why humans were created. Love is the reason why God created us. Love is the reason why all of us are here right now, you know? And if we just remember, you know, love being a reason and love being a type of energy, you know, where love can supply, love can heal a broken heart, love can sustain all of this. If we can just get to a point where we can love enough for ourselves and love enough for our neighbor to say, you know what, and it's starting to happen now, because I'm seeing a lot more, especially in New York. I'm in Connecticut right now visiting my sister. But I'm seeing a lot more white people marching more than Black people. And, you know, I was watching Al Sharpton's, his words at George Floyd's funeral, and he was saying this is different. This is a different time. This is not like the Eric Garners or the Michael Browns or the Sean Bells, you know. He was marching, and he says, there's a little white girl that walked up to me and said, and tapped on him with her mask on. And little girl had to be about 5 or 6. And he looks at her, and the little girl says to Al, "No justice, no peace," and had her fist up. You know, so if we come to this, that love and that energy and teaching our kids and instilling love into those kids and instilling love into every direction in our life, things are going to be completely different. We need more love, and a part of love is patient, love is kind, love is not boastful. If we know what love is and apply that to every facet of our lives, the world's going to be a different place just by looking at that little girl. That wasn't happening 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I have not seen so many white, and it makes me, I'm happy. I have not seen so many white people march. More white people are marching from what I'm seeing than Black people.
Yep.
And that is an incredible thing. And yes, I'm drained and I'm tired of these organizations on top of it, but it's enlightening, and it's a bit reassuring to know that we're not by ourselves in this situation. Right. And us as individuals, you know, we are there and we are marching and we want to change. I'm just nervous about these organizations. If them as individuals, the people in these big artistic places and these CEOs, if they're not so concerned with money and so concerned with funding and so concerned with the dollar, you know, how that love and that change can transform them as an individual and organizations as an organization. That's what we need. Yeah. Mustard seed, grain, one step at a time. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think it's one at a time. I think sometimes we can get overwhelmed. Like I really feel Allison's frustration. I feel that, but I just want to say, sis, like if you can find one thing that you feel like you can bring a positive force to, then choose that one thing. Whether it's like your next door neighbor who you're teaching a voice lesson to, you're probably already doing some of this, whether it's a local church or whatever, something very small, because really it's that energy, it's the supernatural energy that breaks the yokes. See, we don't have that power. We can do the small little tiny things, reaching out to one another like we're doing here. But if we get overwhelmed, then we're like, how am I going to deal with all of this? This is never going to change. So I stopped doing that and thinking, how can I make small changes within my community? And I wanted to ask Michael, what do you think was different for white people this time? I have my own theories, and I did ask this question on my Facebook page. What was different about George Floyd's death that has caused the outrage internationally? Because see, I've been outraged. So I was curious to hear what was different. My first thought was this, is the callousness on the police face. Like, I think it was even beyond racism what he did. I think what he did, that shit was anti-human.
It was evil.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't describe it. It's so far, it's like, it's kind of like how evil can put you in really compromising situations. Then there is something out of your power that pushes you to the depths. even Lucifer was like, I don't know if I would have eaten it.
Yeah.
Like, for real, I'm not lying to y'all, because Lucifer is a fallen angel, and even the enemy fears God.
Yes.
Even the enemy fears God. That shit that officer did, Lucifer was sitting back going like, damn, like, yo, that's beyond what. I'm serious. I'm not even being facetious when I say that. Like, that was anti-human what he did. And so I'm curious, Michael, to hear what you have to say, because I couldn't really watch the whole thing. I could only watch a couple of seconds of it. And then I read a lot of descriptions, and I listened to some of my favorite journalists talk and describe the video without me having to actually experience it myself. What do you think was different than, let's say, Philando Castile, who got shot in his car, or what was different with like Trayvon Martin or Michael?
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like,
Eric Garner.
What is different? What is different about it? Because I wish in my heart of hearts, Dr. Jackson, that I could look at you and tell you honestly that the barbarity of that execution was what changed hearts and minds of white people. I don't think it was. I think some of them may be, but we've all seen stuff like this before. Yeah. This is not new. I'm on Cop Watch. I'm on a lot of websites that, like, you basically, it's basically they film the cops all the time, and I see abuse all the time. I think the thing that made the difference, sadly, was there a bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds with nothing to do. Frankly, that's my opinion. I think that if this would have happened in October, it would have been a disturbance, but it wouldn't have been like it is now. And I think it's only because I know, as the kind of person that I was back in those days, there's nothing that would get me out in the street. Nothing. But if I didn't have anything else to do. However, here's the good story. Here's the thing about that. I don't care how the fuck they got out there. I don't care. Because in the doing, the goal was accomplished, and they probably learned something when they're out there. When I went to my protest, I learned that white people in my town are the most polite too polite people I've ever met in my entire life. Because we live on the main vein of a tourist area in Colorado. And we marched all around our little town, which is there's only 2 roads in and out of our town that go up to Estes Park and then go out to Denver. So you have to come through our town. Now, we could shut tourism down on that thing for hours and devastate, make a difference, get things. What did our protest group do? They politely waited for the crosswalks to change. And then, no, we got a lot. I mean, the good thing is a lot of support and everything else, but they didn't. There was no disruption. There was just proclamation.
I see.
And I really think it has to do with people just have time on their hands, and they're forced to watch because they have nowhere else to look.
That's right.
Their lives got boring, and now they're like, well, look at this. Oh, hey, did you guys know there was racism? They're doing racism all over the place. I had no idea.
Oh, damn.
Look, we better get out there and do something. And then while we're doing that, you better throw us a fucking parade because we did something. Please throw us a parade because we're so great.
Wow. So you're saying it's not a genuine uprising? Because I always say God got jokes, but it's not necessarily a genuine uprising.
I'd say it's a combination. I mean, it's the frustrate. I think, like I said, if it happened in October, I don't know that it would have the same result.
Yeah.
That it happened now, when people are already seeing the institutions crumble from the top down, like Jermaine's saying, the fish rots from the head, and the head is rotten. And nobody can, they understand that when they go to their leaders and they go, we've got this problem, you got to fix it. And they just ignore them. So they keep going until they find somebody that reacts. That's usually the mayor or the fire chief or the police captain, or their local, or somebody in their own organization, their union colleagues, their church colleagues. You see all of this stuff starting to manifest itself. That's the only place you can get any remedy is at the local level. And Dr. Jackson, what you said was so important. Local action is so very important.
Yes.
Because we have lost faith in the large institutions.
Yes.
That's why I mean, when the large institutions in our business, look, I've never sang at the Met. I covered there once. I never will. Not because I'm like, I'll never sing there. They just won't hire me. But at this point in my life, I have no desire and no compunction to go there. Because what they do there is not what I do. And what you guys were talking about, doing your thing and telling your story and speaking your power to truth, man, that's what we all should be doing. And stop telling these stories from these dead fucking white guys from 200, 300 years ago. Let's tell some stories from today. Let's tell some stories from the future. Somebody mentioned Afrofuturism. It's one of my favorite fucking movements right now because it tells these stories in a way that redacts the white oppression. It says, what if they didn't have 400 years of slavery? What amazing technological advancements have we missed out on because we killed them?
Right.
J. Cole, one of my favorite artists, he said in one of his songs, he said, maybe the hood needs a new faith, a new story about a boy not too far where you stay. Maybe, we need new stories.
Right.
Tired of hearing the same ones. That's
right.
It's crazy.
First we got to tell our own. First we have to relive our own, and that's what I was able to do on my one-woman show. It's like, okay, tell your own, because there is some trauma there, but there's a lot of Black girl joy in that. It's a lot of music and a lot of different things. And now I'm thinking of the other stories that I need to tell. I just got tired. I'm like, how many times is Mimi gonna die?
Baby.
Can you imagine today? Can you imagine? Okay, let's just imagine after, say, 500,000 people die in this country from COVID, which could happen. Can you imagine walking into a theater and watching Bohème and seeing her die at the end and being like, oh, she coughed herself to death. Ain't that weird? No ventilators in Paris, I guess.
Nothing. And that's the thing. Like,
it's going to look so ridiculous to everybody.
It's ridiculous. Listen, I have 5 degrees in voice, so don't get it twisted. In opera, and I know every method. I created my own method, and I teach people how to heal their throats and all that. But it doesn't make any sense to me to keep telling the same story over and over and over again, and to have a whole bunch of Black folks telling them same stories over and over again, and fighting and pushing to try to tell those stories, and getting depressed if they don't get opportunities to get in there to tell those same old stories. When I think about it, it doesn't make any sense to me. And artistically, I feel like I was pushed into that reality. It wasn't something like, literally in 2008, I had this epiphany. I joined the gym. I started doing natural bodybuilding. And I started combining bodybuilding and opera together, which is weird. And then I did America's Got Talent as the opera singing bodybuilder, which is very weird. And I did not know. I was like, who is this girl that is happening? So I had to start rebranding myself, because I'm like, either I give up this new identity to fit the old, or I have to try to figure out who this new person is. I don't know if this is the case with what white people experience in their lives, but I think with Black lives, we have to almost invent alter egos and identities, right? So that we can see ourselves doing things that nobody else dreamed of us ever doing. There is no such thing as an opera singing bodybuilder until I became her on America's Got Talent. And then I got my logo where I am pressing a microphone. You know what I mean? It's like, if we don't tell our stories and create our own identities, and I gave her a name. Her name is Necessary Diva. She's the opera singing bodybuilder, right? She's strange. I don't know her. But when I step into that identity, everyone's more interested. People lean in. You're a what? Can you come and talk to our kids at our school? Can you come? Do you do consultations? How do you body in? And so now I'm writing a book called Mind, Body, Soul Building. Train the mind to control the body that houses the soul. You know, this is shit I'm coming up with based on my lived experiences and allowing my life to flow. Now, if I kept living that opera dream, I wouldn't even be here talking to you guys. I'd be depressed somewhere because all the opera houses are closed down. So I praise God that years ago, this is a 10-year journey. My first bodybuilding competition was 10 years ago. It's my 10th year anniversary in this thing. And now I'm seeing it as not just a physical aesthetic, but it's been something that has healed me spiritually and otherwise. And so I'm teaching a lot of my kids to look outside of the status quo, because when you're unique, people come after you. I'm telling you, when you're different, they may not even like your ass, but it's different and it can help their platform. Because everybody who has their own platforms and businesses, they want to present something that nobody else has ever presented before. So Raiquan, if I was you, you got that hood thing like I do, I would pull that in with my classical background and somehow create this identity, this alter ego, this thing, because no other Black man is really doing that I know of. Not on a grand scale. You know, people will hashtag and do a couple of videos here and there, and it's cute. But for you to build an identity around that, nobody else is doing that. So I happened upon this identity because I had an epiphany and I was knocked on my ass. And I was like, okay, either I fight to go back to the old, or I try to see where this thing is taking me. And it took me into fitness and bodybuilding. And so now I'm talking and consulting opera singers on mind, body, voice, body, the voice being your voice figuratively and literally. Our bodies are our instruments, because not enough opera singers think about that. You know, I'm not talking about weight and I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about body and voice and how they correlate. And that's become a business for me. So then I went out and got a certification in training. I got a certification in special populations. I have a certifications in nutrition, because it's something I'm also interested in for my own, but I've also been consulting a lot of opera singers on fitness. So creating your own.
I love that. And I'm gonna piggyback. Michael, can I piggyback off Tiff really quick?
Sure.
First off, unconventionality is literally my twin brother. I've been trying to step out of that box for a minute. And it's one of the reasons why Nia and I are so close, because we, for a long time in high school, we kind of withdrew ourselves from conventionality. And I just really started getting comfortable with originality and authenticity. And Raiquan is also, he's really good about this too. So I'm glad that you just empowered him in that way, because he needs to hear that. He's also been one of my sources of inspiration. You know, I don't know many people who cantor who are Black. I'm doing that in Connecticut. Shout out to my home church, Asylum Hill, who's producing your show, Dr. Tiffany. They gave me a platform to speak recently about racial inequities and the issues that are happening. It was on a small scale. The video is out there on YouTube. I'm not saying anyone go find it, but it's a thing.
I found it.
Yeah,
it's what inspired this episode.
That was not my plan, but it happened anyway. So I'm like super thankful that Asylum Hill Congregational Church, which I literally just joined this season, they gave me a platform to do that and talk about my queerness. I'm pansexual. My family knows, so I have no issue with the world knowing, because I own that. And I think any person, young person listening to this, if you got this far in the podcast, you know, you have options, white or Black. If you find yourself original and queer and unconventional, like Tiffany, like me, well, Tiff's not queer, but I'm just saying I'm queer. If you find yourself different, create your own lane. I don't know where I'm gonna go with cantoring, but I'm singing with a group that's on Signum Records doing choral music. I was introduced to Michael from opera, or through an opera partnership, and Will Liberman is this rising star. I don't know if I'm gonna have a life in opera if at all. And I'm comfortable with doing Compromario. And Michael and I talked about this on the last podcast. I'm okay with that. Pay me my money. Let me get off to my role, and I'm out. And then I'm also doing other genres that I heard were a possibility, but no one ever pushed me. I was a baby. Like Tiff said, teach the children from the start. My first intro to opera, and I talked about this last time on the other podcast, was a Black woman that I heard in my summer camp at my performing arts high school, the Governor School for the Arts. Shout out to them too. And that's where this all came about. I thought I was finding my purpose. And it wasn't just in opera, it was in a medium of many other things. That's what evolution is all about. That's what being unconventional is all about. There is no one path. And the supernatural magic that Tiff is talking about that I love so much, and some of us call it God, some of us call it Allah, some of us call it Yahweh, some of us call it Jehovah, is that you will start to discover your purpose. And advocacy is not one of the things that I thought I'd stumble on this early, but at 26 years old, I brought these beautiful people together, including our lovely host. And now we're having this conversation for you, Dallas Opera.
Jermaine, you're the reason I started singing opera. If it wasn't for you, I would have quit Governor School my sophomore year. I come straight from the hood, didn't have no gay friends. My mind was so close. But because I took that step, I was probably the only straight dude that went to Governor School during that time. You know,
senior year he was. In hindsight, he was. Not
so not knowing
it's an education.
And being so open to people that are different from me, being so open to white people and their ideas, even though with my background, people would judge that and be like, why are you here? I don't care what you are. And that's because of people like you. You were the Black male at the Governor School for the Arts that I looked up to, and you were from Portsmouth. So to see that inspired me to really if he can do it, I can do it. Yeah, my father was killed by a cop. Yeah, I come from the ghetto, but he did it. He's from the same place, and we look alike. I don't care if I don't care about sexuality. He did it. So using what you did for me helped me, and it helped me go to college for free. If it weren't for you, I would have quit. Doing the Mikado, 16 years old. You were 18. I'm like, wow. As soon as our directors gave us that book, I'm not singing this mess. I'm an R&B singer. I'm used to singing to girls in the hallway. I'm not singing no opera. But because of you talking to me, because of your leadership and protecting me and showing me, hey, it's okay. You don't have to have everything they got, but you have a voice and you got to use it. That inspired me, bro. So I just wanted to let you know and let them know you made a difference in my life. So
can we get Raiquan on that Governor School episode we're gonna do, Jermaine? I think he'd be good.
I think that's time.
Because look, I mean, it's a direct line. I mean, I love that. So Speedo's going to join us. So we're still trying to get some dates together, but it's going to be great. I think I'm running out of space on my cloud for this, so I'm going to have to go and delete some stuff. So what do you guys say we wrap this one up?
Absolutely.
And let's put a bookmark in this, and let's maybe have another one. Or another one. I thought this was a fantastic discussion, and I'm really just so thankful to you guys for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
So much.
Thank you for having us, Michael.
Yeah.
And for the invitation as always. I love you.
I'm going to try to edit together an hour episode. I got to find the right hour. But that'll be up tonight at 9. So if you guys can go on social media and go ahead and give it some retweets and stuff. So we'll, whatever the kids call it these days.
Are you on Instagram?
Yeah, Mazer the Hazer.
Okay, I'll follow you.
Mazer the Hazer?
I'll put it in the chat. I was in a fraternity.
Unconventionality. I don't have any of that other stuff.
Is that IG?
Yeah, Instagram, yeah. my Facebook is Badass Baritone. And,
which is that voice. My God, are we done? Like official stuff? That voice, girl, hear him sing "Sweeney